"Mom, if you don't send the money now, you'll destroy my marriage." That's what my daughter Emily told me, her voice sharp as a blade, just hours before I discovered she'd held a secret wedding without me. How does a mother face the truth that the child she loved most erased her from their biggest day? Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. The autumn leaves crunched beneath my feet as I walked up the driveway of my colonial home in Burlington, Vermont, the same house David and I had bought 35 years ago when Emily was just a baby. At 72, I still moved with the quiet dignity of someone who'd spent 40 years teaching high school English, though retirement had softened my edges these past 5 years. The mailbox at the end of our maple-lined street read Margaret Thompson, though it had been just me for 7 years now, ever since David's heart gave out on that terrible February morning. I paused at the front door, fishing for my keys in my leather purse, the Coach bag Emily had given me for my 65th birthday, back when her gifts came with genuine hugs instead of hidden price tags. Through the bay window, I could see the family photos lining the mantel. Emily's graduation from Middlebury College, her wedding to Nathan at the Shelburne Museum, David's last Christmas with us. Each frame held a moment when I believed our family bonds were unbreakable. Inside, the grandfather clock David inherited from his father chimed 3 times. I set down the grocery bags from Hannaford's $240 worth, most of it destined for Emily and Nathan's apartment in Boston. For the past 4 years, I'd been making these weekly shops, filling my Subaru Outback with their favorite organic produce, grass-fed beef, and those expensive protein shakes Nathan insisted he needed for his CrossFit training. The phone rang as I was unpacking the groceries. Emily's photo flashed on the screen, the one from her 30th birthday party at the Cheesecake Factory, her smile radiant, her arms wrapped around me like I was her most precious treasure. "Hi, Mom." Her voice bubbled through the speaker, that particular tone she used when the credit card bills were due. "How's my favorite person in the whole world?" "Hello, sweetheart." I cradled the phone between my shoulder and ear, continuing to sort groceries. "I'm just putting away your things. I'll drive down tomorrow morning." "Oh, Mom, you're absolutely amazing. Nathan was just saying how lucky we are to have you. You know you're like our guardian angel, right?" Guardian angel. That's what I'd become, not a mother, not a mother-in-law, but a celestial ATM machine floating above their financial troubles with my teacher's pension and David's life insurance payout. $800,000 he'd left me, built from 40 years of his dedication to IBM, and I'd already spent nearly $200,000 keeping Emily and Nathan afloat. "Emily," I was thinking. I ventured carefully, "Your father's anniversary is coming up next month. I thought we could visit his grave together, maybe have dinner at that Italian place he loved." "Oh, Mom." Her voice shifted, losing its sweetness like sugar dissolving in cold water. "You know February is super busy for us. Nathan has that huge presentation at his startup, and I'm swamped with my yoga teacher training. But definitely let's plan something for later, okay?" "Oh, speaking of Nathan's startup, we might need a tiny bit of help with next month's rent. The investors are being slow with funding. You know how it is." $1,800. That was their tiny bit of help every month for their Back Bay apartment, on top of the $1,500 for Nathan's Tesla Model 3 lease, the $400 for their Equinox gym membership, and God knows what else I'd been hemorrhaging from my accounts. "Of course, dear." I heard myself saying, even as my chest tightened, "I'll transfer it tonight." "Thanks, Mom." "Oh, gotta run, Nathan's calling me. Love you tons." The line went dead before I could respond. Love you tons. When had those words become a payment receipt instead of a genuine emotion? I sank into David's old recliner, the leather worn smooth where his hands used to rest. On the side table sat our wedding photo from 1978, my veil billowing in the wind outside the First Congregational Church. David's eyes held such promise then, such faith that the life we were building would mean something. "What would you think of all this, my love?" I whispered to his photo. "Your daughter treating me like a Wells Fargo branch with feelings?" The house felt emptier than usual that evening. I heated up a can of Campbell's tomato soup. Why cook elaborate meals when you're dining alone? And thought about the $900 Le Creuset cookware set I'd bought Emily last Christmas, probably collecting dust in her apartment while they ordered takeout from Grubhub on my supplementary credit card. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I calculated the hemorrhage: $24,000 annually in rent support, $18,000 for the car, another $30,000 in miscellaneous expenses, groceries, insurance, their couples therapy with that Manhattan specialist who charged $400 a session. Nearly $75,000 a year, draining away David's legacy like water through a broken dam. But it wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about the way Emily's voice changed when she needed something, how Nathan only made eye contact when signing the checks I wrote, how their gratitude felt rehearsed, practiced, performed. It was about feeling like a safety net instead of a mother, a resource instead of a relationship. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would drive 3 hours to Boston with their groceries, and Emily would be too busy for lunch. Nathan would barely look up from his laptop. And I would smile and pretend that this was enough, that their conditional love was better than no love at all. If only I had known that within 2 weeks, the illusion would shatter completely, and I would discover exactly where I ranked in my daughter's definition of special people. The morning after that phone call, I couldn't shake the hollowness in my stomach. 4 years. That's how long I'd been writing checks with the mechanical precision of a bank teller, each signature another thread binding me to a relationship that existed only in monthly statements. As I sat at my kitchen table in Burlington, reconciling my accounts in the pale Vermont sunrise, the numbers stared back at me like an indictment of my own desperation for connection. $24,000 annually just for their Boston apartment, a 2-bedroom in Back Bay that cost more than most people's mortgages. I remembered the day they'd shown me the listing on Zillow, Emily's eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, it's perfect. Nathan's office is just a 10-minute walk, and there's a Whole Foods right around the corner." She hadn't asked if I could afford it. She'd simply assumed, the way one assumes the sun will rise or that mothers exist to provide. The Tesla payments came next, $18,000 a year for Nathan's Model 3, pearl white with the premium interior. "It's an investment in our future, Margaret," he'd explained with that condescending patience he reserved for explaining technology to someone my age. "The gas savings alone make it worthwhile." Of course, he never mentioned who was saving on gas while I depleted David's carefully accumulated legacy. Then there were the incidentals, a word that made mockery of $30,000 in annual bleeding. Whole Foods groceries delivered weekly through Amazon Fresh because Emily claimed she had chemical sensitivities to regular supermarket produce. The Equinox membership because Nathan needed executive-level fitness facilities for networking. The couples therapy with Dr. Rothstein on Newberry Street, $400 per session, twice monthly, because apparently their relationship required professional maintenance at my expense. I pulled out my calculator, though I knew the sum by heart. $72,000 per year. In 4 years, I'd transferred $288,000 to my daughter and son-in-law. The number made my hands shake as I wrote it down, the zeros lined up like tombstones marking the death of my retirement dreams. "This has to stop," I whispered to the empty kitchen, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew I wouldn't follow through. How could I? Emily was all I had left of David, the baby we'd tried for 7 years to conceive, the miracle child who arrived when I was 40. The irony wasn't lost on me. A retired English teacher who'd spent decades analyzing character motivation in literature, yet blind to the narrative unfolding in my own life. I'd become a secondary character in my daughter's story, the convenient plot device who appeared whenever financial conflict needed resolution. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Mom, forgot to mention Nathan's startup needs a bridge loan. Just $50,000 until the Series A funding comes through. You know we wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent. $50,000. Spoken as casually as asking to borrow a cup of sugar. My finger hovered over the keyboard, ready to type my usual. "Of course, sweetheart." But something made me pause. Instead, I typed, "That's a substantial amount, Emily. Perhaps we should discuss this in person." The response was immediate, and the sweetness evaporated like morning dew under harsh sun. "Seriously? After everything we've done for you? Nathan says you probably have 10 times that just sitting in bonds." "Don't be selfish, Mom." Selfish. The word hit me like a physical blow. I, who had paid for their wedding at the Mount Washington Resort $60,000 for 150 guests, a 5-course meal, and an open bar where Nathan's fraternity brothers drank premium scotch until dawn. I, who had furnished their entire apartment with Pottery Barn and West Elm pieces, spending $15,000 so they could host dinner parties for people who never knew my name. Another text. Mom, this is really important. Nathan's whole career depends on this. You want us to succeed, don't you? Before I could respond, my landline rang, the old rotary phone David had insisted on keeping, now dusty from disuse. Emily knew I couldn't ignore that ring. It might be an emergency. Margaret, Nathan's voice. Not Emily's. No, Mom, no pretense of familial warmth. We need to be realistic here. That money is just sitting there depreciating. We're offering you a chance to invest in something meaningful, our future. Emily's future. Your grandchildren's future. Grandchildren? The word caught in my throat. Emily hasn't mentioned. Eventually, Margaret. But how can we think about kids when we're drowning in financial stress? That biological clock is ticking, you know. Emily's already 34. Every month we delay because of money is a month closer to high-risk pregnancy. Is that what you want? The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty, weaponizing my deepest longing grandchildren against me. I felt physically sick, bile rising in my throat. I need time to think about this, Nathan. Time? His laugh was sharp, contemptuous. Must be nice to have that luxury. We have 3 days before this opportunity disappears. 3 days, Margaret. After everything you've put Emily through with your penny pinching lately, the least you could do is help when it really matters. Everything I've put her through? My voice cracked. Nathan, I've given you both nearly $300,000, which you can clearly afford, or you wouldn't have done it. Look, Margaret, I don't have time for this guilt trip manipulation. You either want to support your daughter or you don't. Emily's in tears right now, absolutely devastated that her own mother would abandon her like this. But hey, enjoy your comfortable retirement while we struggle. The line went dead. I stumbled to the bathroom, barely making it before the nausea overcame me. My body shook as I knelt on the cold tile, David's wedding ring on my finger clicking against the porcelain. This wasn't about money anymore, it was about power, control, the systematic dismantling of my sense of self, until I was nothing but a funding source with a pulse. Through my tears, I saw Emily's baby book on the bathroom shelf, placed there years ago when she'd left for college and I'd turned her room into a guest bath. I reached for it with trembling fingers, opening to a page where 5-year-old Emily had drawn our family 3 stick figures holding hands. Mommy, written in crayon above my head with hearts all around it. Where had that little girl gone? When had her love become transactional, metered out in proportion to my financial compliance? My phone buzzed again. Emily, Nathan told me about your call. I can't believe you're doing this to us. After everything we've sacrificed to stay close to you instead of taking jobs in California. But fine, Mom, your money is clearly more important than your daughter's happiness. Sacrificed. As if living rent-free on my dime while pursuing Nathan's startup dreams and Emily's endless yoga certifications was some noble gesture. The gaslighting was so complete, so expertly crafted, that for a moment I almost believed I was the villain in this story. But as I sat there on my bathroom floor, surrounded by the ghosts of a love that perhaps never existed, I knew I had reached my limit. The well of my generosity hadn't run dry, it had been poisoned, and every dollar I continued to pour would only deepen my own destruction. Tomorrow would bring more manipulation, more guilt, more carefully orchestrated emotional terrorism. But tonight, in the quiet of my empty house, I finally understood the price of what I'd mistaken for love, and it was more than I could afford to pay. The sleepless night that followed Nathan's call left me feeling hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides with a melon baller. By dawn, I'd given up pretending to rest, instead sitting at my kitchen window watching the Vermont sunrise paint Church Street in shades of gold that seemed to mock my darkness. The coffee maker gurgled its morning ritual, David's old Cuisinart that still worked after 20 years, unlike the relationships I'd tried to maintain with expensive transfers. It was Tuesday, which meant Emily would normally call during her lunch break from the yoga studio. Like clockwork, my phone rang at 12:30, her contact photo glowing on the screen taken last Thanksgiving, both of us wearing matching aprons I'd bought, flour dusting our cheeks from making David's mother's apple pie recipe. The memory felt like swallowing glass. Hi, Mom. Her voice carried that practiced sweetness, like artificial sweetener that leaves a bitter aftertaste. I wanted to apologize for yesterday. Nathan was stressed about the investor meeting. You understand how men get about business pressure, right? The casual dismissal of their cruelty as business pressure made my stomach churn. Emily, what Nathan said was deeply hurtful. Mom, please. She sighed dramatically, a sound I'd heard countless times when she was a teenager, except now it carried calculated exhaustion rather than genuine frustration. Don't make this into something bigger than it is. We're family. Sometimes families have tough conversations about money. It's normal. Normal. As if emotional blackmail using hypothetical grandchildren as leverage was just another Thursday in the Thompson-Walsh household. I gripped my coffee mug so tightly my knuckles went white, the arthritis in my joints screaming in protest. Speaking of family, Emily continued, her tone shifting to something lighter, conspiratorial even. Nathan's parents are coming to visit next month. We're planning this amazing dinner party at Mistral, that French place in the South End. It'll probably run about $3,000 with wine pairings for 12 people. I already told them you'd cover it as an early anniversary gift for us. The presumption knocked the wind from my lungs. She'd already committed my money without asking, treating my bank account like a communal resource she could tap at will. Emily, you can't just— What? Can't what, Mom? Her voice hardened instantly, shedding its false warmth like a snake molting dead skin. Can't include you in our celebrations? Can't treat you like the family matriarch you claim you want to be? God. You're so contradictory. One minute you're crying about wanting to be involved, the next you're complaining when we include you. Including me would mean asking if I'd like to join you, not just assuming I'll pay. There you go again with the money obsession, she practically shrieked the words. Everything is about dollars and cents with you lately. What happened to the mom who said family was more important than anything? The one who taught me that love means sacrifice? I thought about all my sacrifices, the retirement trips to Europe I'd canceled, the kitchen renovation I'd postponed indefinitely, the new car I didn't buy because Emily needed a small loan of $20,000 for her yoga teacher certification that she'd never repaid. My chest tightened, a familiar pain that had been visiting more frequently, stress carving its signature into my heart muscle. You're right, Emily. I did teach you that love means sacrifice. My voice came out steadier than I felt. But I never taught you that love means taking advantage of someone's generosity until they have nothing left. The silence that followed felt violent, like the pause before a car crash when you see the impact coming but can't stop it. When Emily spoke again, her voice had dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than screaming. Wow, Mom. Just wow. After everything I've done to maintain our relationship despite your increasing negativity and paranoia, Nathan thinks you might be showing signs of dementia. This irrational hostility, the money fixation, the personality changes. We've been researching facilities that specialize in cognitive decline. Really nice ones, of course. We'd never put you somewhere substandard. The threat hung in the air like a noose. My daughter, the child I'd nursed through pneumonia at age 3, staying awake for 72 hours straight, was suggesting I had dementia because I'd questioned financing their lifestyle. The room spun slightly, and I had to grip the counter to stay upright. I'm 72 years old, Emily, not 90. My mind is perfectly clear. Is it, though? You forgot Nathan's birthday last month. You've been isolating yourself from us. These are classic warning signs. As your only family, we have a responsibility to step in if you can't manage your affairs anymore. She'd weaponized my love against me so expertly that for a moment, I actually questioned myself. Had I forgotten Nathan's birthday? No, I'd deliberately not sent a gift after he'd returned the watch I'd given him the previous year, saying it wasn't his style and asking for the receipt instead. I need to go, Emily. Running away from difficult conversations is another symptom, Mom. We're just worried about you. That's why we need that bridge loan. Once Nathan's company succeeds, we'll have the resources to properly care for you. It's an investment in your own future security. The manipulation was so elaborate, so multi-layered, I felt like I was drowning in it. Every attempt to establish boundaries was reframed as mental decline. Every question about money became evidence of paranoia. Every moment of self-preservation was twisted into abandonment. Goodbye, Emily. Mom, wait the $50,000. We really do need an answer by Friday. Nathan's already told the investors you're on board. You wouldn't want to embarrass him in front of professional connections, would you? It could ruin his entire career. Is that the legacy you want, being the mother-in-law who destroyed her daughter's marriage and future? I hung up without answering, my hand shaking so violently I dropped the phone. It clattered on the hardwood floor David had installed himself over 3 weekends, back when we were young and poor and happy, working side by side with sawdust in our hair and paint under our fingernails. The chest pain intensified, radiating down my left arm. Not a heart attack, I knew those symptoms, but stress, cardiomyopathy, what doctors called broken heart syndrome. How fitting that my daughter's cruelty was literally breaking my heart. I stumbled to the bathroom, catching my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked haggard, aged 10 years in the past 4. Gray roots showing because I'd stopped getting my hair colored to save money for them. Clothes from Walmart instead of Talbot's because Emily needed designer workout clothes for her teaching. Every sacrifice etched into the lines around my eyes, the sag of my shoulders, the tremor in my hands. On the bathroom counter sat a photo from Emily's 16th birthday, both of us at the Cheesecake Factory, her face glowing as she blew out candles on a chocolate cake. I'd surprised her with a car that day, a used Honda Civic I'd saved for 3 years to buy. She'd hugged me so tight, crying with joy, saying I was the best mom in the universe. When had that grateful teenager become this calculating stranger who saw me as nothing more than a credit line with a pulse? When had her love become contingent on my ability to pay? The nausea hit suddenly, violently. I barely made it to the toilet before losing my breakfast, my body purging the poison of realization along with my morning toast. This was who my daughter had become, or perhaps who she'd always been, just waiting for the right opportunity to show her true nature. As I sat on the cold bathroom floor, my body racked with tremors that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with betrayal, I understood with crushing clarity that the daughter I loved existed only in photographs now. The real Emily, the one demanding $50,000 while threatening me with dementia facilities, was a stranger wearing my daughter's face. And that stranger was capable of anything. 2 weeks passed in a blur of ignored calls and unanswered texts. I'd finally transferred the $50,000 to Nathan's startup not because I believed in their threats or manipulations, but because I needed time to think, to plan, to understand how my life had become this grotesque pantomime of maternal obligation. The morning I made the transfer, my hands shook so violently I had to try 3 times to type the routing number correctly. $50,000 vanishing into the void of their entitlement with a single click. Friday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth for February in Vermont, the kind of false spring that tricks crocuses into blooming before the inevitable freeze kills them. How appropriate. I was making David's favorite banana bread, a ritual I'd maintained every Friday since his death, when my phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Barbara Hutchinson. "Margaret, did you see Emily's Instagram? Such beautiful photos from yesterday. You must be so proud." Instagram. I rarely checked social media, finding it an exhausting parade of curated happiness. But something in Barbara's message sent ice through my veins. I opened the app with fumbling fingers, searching for Emily's profile. The first photo stopped my heart. Emily in a white dress, not just any dress, but a wedding dress. An elaborate ivory creation with hand-beaded bodice and cathedral train that must have cost $20,000. Nathan beside her in a Tom Ford tuxedo, both of them glowing with joy beneath an arch of white roses and baby's breath at the Four Seasons Boston. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the kitchen stool, the phone clattering against the granite countertop. Wedding. They'd had their wedding. Yesterday. Without telling me. With trembling fingers, I scrolled through the photos, 150 guests raising champagne flutes, Nathan's parents beaming beside the couple. Emily's yoga instructor friends in matching blush bridesmaid dresses. The 7-tier cake decorated with sugar peonies. The reception in the grand ballroom with its crystal chandeliers and gold-leafed ceiling. And then I saw the caption that shattered what remained of my heart. "Perfect day celebrating with our inner circle. So grateful to be surrounded by the people who matter most. When you know who truly loves you, every moment becomes magical. Number blessed with the best number only special people number inner circle only. Only special people." The banana bread I'd been making David's mother's recipe that Emily had begged me to teach her every Christmas sat abandoned on the counter, the bananas browning in their bowl like my dying hope. I scrolled frantically through every photo, searching for myself, for any sign that I'd been remembered, acknowledged, even mentioned. Nothing. 150 people had been special enough. Emily's college roommate who she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Nathan's CrossFit buddies, his boss who he complained about constantly. The couple from their building, who they claimed were intrusive and annoying. Everyone had made the cut except the woman who'd given them $288,000 over 4 years. Except the mother who'd held Emily through 36 hours of labor, refusing epidural because the doctors said it might affect the baby. My phone rang. Emily. Hi, Mom. Her voice bubbled with post-wedding bliss. Did you try calling earlier? We were at the spa getting couples massages. This honeymoon suite at the Mandarin Oriental is absolutely incredible. You got married. The words came out flat. Deceased. A pause. Then, with theatrical surprise, oh, did someone post pictures already? We asked everyone to wait until we could tell family personally. I am family, Emily. I'm your mother. Of course you are. She laughed, that tinkling sound she'd perfected at her expensive liberal arts college. That's why I'm calling you now, silly. We wanted to tell you privately, make it special. The wedding was yesterday, today is the day after. How is this special? Mom, don't be dramatic. You know how stressful wedding planning is. We kept it small, intimate, just our inner circle. There it was, the phrase that would haunt me forever. Inner circle. A geometric metaphor for exclusion, with me standing permanently outside its circumference. 150 people is not small, Emily. Have you been stalking my social media? That's a bit invasive, don't you think? Nathan says. Nathan's parents were there. My voice cracked. I saw them in the photos, standing where I should have been. His mother in the exact same position where the mother of the bride stands. Well, they contributed to the wedding expenses, so naturally, I gave you $50,000 2 weeks ago. That was for Nathan's startup, not the wedding. Don't conflate things, Mom. It's not healthy. The gaslighting was so swift, so practiced I felt reality tilting. Emily, I've given you almost $300,000. I've paid your rent for 4 years. I furnished your apartment. I've been there every single time you've called, transferred money every time you've asked. And we appreciate that, we really do. But a wedding is about surrounding yourself with people who support your journey forward, not those who keep bringing up the past. Dr. Rothstein says you have issues with financial codependency that we need to establish boundaries around. Dr. Rothstein? The therapist I pay for? See? There you go again, making everything about money. This is exactly why we couldn't invite you. Your energy would have ruined our special day. Nathan's mother understands that weddings are about joy, not ledgers. Each word was a nail in the coffin of our relationship. My daughter had married without me, celebrated without me, stood at the altar and promised her life to someone while I sat at home making banana bread, oblivious to my exclusion from the most important day of her life. Did you even consider, I whispered, for one moment, how this would hurt me? Hurt you? Mom, not everything is about you. This was our day, our choice, our celebration. If you can't be happy for us without making it about your feelings, then maybe we made the right decision. The room spun. I gripped the counter, my reflection in the kitchen window showing a woman I didn't recognize, hollow-eyed, gray-skinned, aging in real time from the poison of betrayal. I need to go. Wait, before you go, the rental company charged an extra $3,000 for damage to the tent. Some drunk idiot from Nathan's firm knocked over a champagne fountain. Could you handle that? We're about to board our flight to Bora Bora, and international transfers are such a pain from there. Bora Bora. The honeymoon destination I had suggested to David 40 years ago, but we'd gone to Niagara Falls instead, saving money for Emily's future college fund. You're going on your honeymoon. That I'm paying for, after excluding me from your wedding. And you're asking me for $3,000 more dollars? God, Mom, why does everything have to be so transactional with you? It's just money. Nathan's right, you've become really toxic lately. Maybe some time apart will help you gain perspective. She hung up before I could respond. The silence that followed felt like death, not the peaceful passing David had experienced, but something violent, wrong, a murder of the relationship I'd believed existed. I stood in my kitchen, still in my flour-dusted apron, the morning light illuminating the banana bread ingredients like props in a play about a mother too stupid to recognize her own worthlessness. Somewhere in Boston, my daughter was flying to Bora Bora with money I'd given her, wearing a dress I'd unknowingly financed, celebrating a marriage I wasn't special enough to witness. The pain that crashed over me was physical, visceral. My knees buckled. I slid down the cabinet until I sat on the floor David had installed himself. The floor where Emily had taken her first steps, where we'd had picnics on rainy days, where I taught her to dance before her first middle school social. The sobs that came were primal, torn from somewhere so deep I hadn't known it existed. 7 decades of composure shattered like the champagne flutes at Emily's reception, the reception I'd paid for but couldn't attend because I wasn't in the inner circle of special people. Only special people. The words would echo in my skull forever, a life sentence of exclusion pronounced by the child I'd given everything to. Everything except, apparently, whatever mysterious quality made someone special enough to watch her get married. The days following Emily's honeymoon departure blurred together like watercolors in rain. I couldn't eat the mere sight of food triggered waves of nausea that left me clutching the bathroom sink. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every sign I'd missed. Every moment I'd fooled myself into believing my daughter loved me for more than my checking account. By the 3rd day, I'd lost 8 pounds. My neighbor Barbara knocked twice, concerned about the newspapers piling up, but I couldn't face her sympathy. How could I explain that I'd been excluded from my only child's wedding, that I'd financed an entire celebration I wasn't special enough to attend? Sunday morning, something shifted. I woke not with the usual crushing grief, but with a strange clarity, as if the fog of maternal obligation had finally lifted. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, studying the stranger reflected back hollow cheeks, trembling hands, the pallor of someone recovering from a near-fatal illness, which, in a way, I was. The disease of toxic love had nearly killed me. No more, I told my reflection, and for the first time in 4 years, I meant it. Monday morning I drove to TD Bank, not the Wells Fargo, where Emily knew my account numbers by heart, but a completely different institution. The branch manager, Jennifer Martinez, greeted me with professional warmth that felt more genuine than any interaction with my daughter in recent memory. "I need to open new accounts," I said firmly. "Checking, savings, and I want to transfer all my assets from Wells Fargo, everything." "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. May I ask if there's a particular reason for the change?" "Security concerns," I replied, which wasn't a lie. Securing my financial future from my daughter's parasitic drain was absolutely a security issue. As Jennifer processed the paperwork, I calculated the damage. $288,000 over 4 years, plus the recent $50,000 for Nathan's startup, plus the wedding I'd unknowingly financed through various emergency requests. Nearly $400,000 hemorrhaged away, each transfer a paper cut that had collectively bled me dry. "Mrs. Thompson?" Jennifer's voice pulled me back. "The transfers will complete by end of business today. Your new accounts are fully active, and here are your temporary cards. The permanent ones will arrive within 7 to 10 business days." I took the cards with hands that barely shook progress from the violent tremors of recent days. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily, probably from some overpriced resort in Bora Bora. "Mom, small issue with the room upgrade. Need another $5,000 transferred as soon as possible. The presidential suite is amazing. $5,000. Requested with an emoji, as if champagne glasses could soften the grotesque entitlement. I deleted the message without responding. The next stop was Minuteman Lock and Security on Pearl Street. The owner, Greg Patterson, had installed our original locks when David and I first bought the house. "Mrs. Thompson, good to see you. How can I help?" "I need every lock changed. Doors, windows, garage, everything, and I want them rekeyed to a system my daughter doesn't have access to." His eyebrows raised slightly, but professionals in his trade had seen enough domestic situations to know when not to ask questions. "We can do that today. I'll send my crew over this afternoon. I also need security cameras, the best you have." "Ring system? Very popular. Easy to monitor from your phone." "Yes, complete coverage. I want to see everyone who approaches my property." The quote he provided, $4,200, would have once sent me into guilty calculations about what Emily and Nathan might need instead. Now it felt like the bargain of the century for my freedom. Back home, I sat at David's old oak desk and opened my laptop. The Wells Fargo website showed the transfers pending to TD Bank, my liberation in progress. Then I navigated to the automatic payments section, where monthly transfers to Emily and Nathan had been scheduled like clockwork for 4 years. Cancel. 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 Each click felt like cutting an anchor chain. The rent payment canceled. The car payment canceled. The credit card I'd co-signed removed from autopay. The gym membership, the meal delivery service, the Netflix family plan where I was paying but didn't even have the password, all canceled with surgical precision. My phone rang immediately. Emily. Mom, what the hell? I just got a notification that you canceled the rent transfer. It's due in 3 days. Then you have 3 days to figure it out. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, steady, unmoved by her panic. Figure it out? Figure it out? You've lost your goddamn mind. We're on our honeymoon. The honeymoon I wasn't invited to celebrate. After the wedding I wasn't special enough to attend. Oh my God, you're really going to be this petty, this vindictive, over 1 day? 1 day? I laughed, but it was bitter as arsenic. Emily, it was your wedding, the most important day of your life, and you deliberately excluded me while cashing my checks. That's not 1 day, that's a declaration of what I am to you. You're being absolutely psychotic right now. Nathan was right, you're having some kind of breakdown. No rational person would destroy their family over hurt feelings. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply choosing to stop financing people who don't consider me special enough to include in their lives. This is financial abuse. She was screaming now, her voice cracking. You can't just cut us off without warning. We have obligations, contracts. Nathan's startup needs that backing. Then Nathan's startup needs better investors than a 72-year-old retired teacher you couldn't even invite to your wedding. I'm calling a lawyer. You're clearly mentally incompetent. No judge would let you do this to your own daughter. I hung up and blocked her number, then Nathan's, then their landline. The silence that followed felt like the first breath after nearly drowning. Greg's crew arrived at 2 o'clock, working with efficient precision to replace every lock. As they installed the Ring cameras, I watched them from David's chair, remembering how he'd always insisted on quality locks. Security isn't paranoia, Maggie, he'd say. It's protecting what matters. If only he could see what I was protecting myself from now. That evening, as I sat in my newly secured home, I opened Emily's baby book one last time. Page after page of meticulous documentation. First smile, first word, mama, how ironic, first steps. The Mother's Day card she'd made in kindergarten. My mommy is the best because she loves me more than all the stars. I closed the book and placed it in a box marked storage. That little girl was gone, if she'd ever really existed outside my desperate need to believe in her. My phone buzzed with an email from Wells Fargo. All automatic transfers have been successfully canceled. For the first time in 4 years, my money was entirely my own. The woman who'd given away $400,000 chasing a love that didn't exist was dead. In her place sat Margaret Thompson, older, wiser, and finally free. The revolution had begun. 10 days passed in blessed silence. The Ring doorbell app on my phone showed various delivery trucks, Barbara walking her golden doodle, the mailman, but no Emily or Nathan. Their honeymoon in Bora Bora must have ended, but I'd successfully built a wall of digital silence around myself. The peace felt foreign, like wearing someone else's clothes, but I was slowly growing into it. Then Thursday arrived with the fury of a Vermont blizzard. The Ring notification came at 7:43 in the morning. Through the camera, I saw Emily's BMW, the one I'd co-signed for 2 years ago, screech into my driveway at an angle that blocked my garage. She emerged like an avenging angel stripped of grace, her designer honeymoon tan contrasting sharply with the rage contorting her features. Nathan followed, his expression calculating, predatory. They didn't knock. Emily used her key, the one I'd forgotten she still had, inserting it with violent precision. The lock didn't turn. Her confusion lasted only seconds before transforming into fury. Mother, she pounded on the door with both fists, abandoning any pretense of civility. Open this door right now. I remained in my kitchen, watching through the app as she attempted the key again, then began shaking the doorknob like she could will it open through sheer entitlement. Nathan pulled out his phone, likely Googling locksmiths. Margaret, Nathan's voice boomed through the door, dropping all pretense of familial respect. We know you're in there. Your car's in the driveway. Stop being childish and open up. The doorbell camera captured everything in high definition. Emily's mascara already running, Nathan's temple vein bulging with rage. They looked less like newlyweds and more like addicts desperate for their next fix. After 15 minutes of pounding, Emily called my new number. Somehow they'd gotten it, probably from Barbara, who didn't know better. I let it ring through to voicemail 23 times before she started texting. "Mother, I'm standing outside your house freezing because you changed the locks like a paranoid lunatic. Open the door or I'm calling the police for a wellness check. Then, we're facing eviction because of your psychotic breakdown. Is that what you want? Your daughter homeless? And Nathan's investors pulled out when the account you promised to back us with disappeared. You've destroyed our future." Each message escalated in vitriol, caps lock screaming through the digital void. Finally, I opened my front door but left the storm door locked between us. Emily's face transformed instantly, the tears evaporating, replaced by a smile so artificial it could have been injection-molded plastic. "Mom, thank God. We were so worried. When you didn't answer for days, we thought something terrible had happened. I'm fine." My voice came out steady, emotionless. "Can we come in? It's freezing out here, and we really need to talk about this misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You excluded me from your wedding. You told me I wasn't special enough. Now I'm excluding you from my finances. It's perfectly reciprocal." Nathan stepped forward, his salesman persona sliding into place. "Margaret, let's be reasonable adults here. Emily may have handled the wedding poorly, but destroying our lives over one oversight is extreme. You've made it this far, go ahead and hit. Like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because who knows, the next story might just touch your heart." Oversight? The word tasted like battery acid. "You posted 150 photos. Emily wore a $30,000 dress I unknowingly paid for. You served Chateau d'Yquem I definitely financed. That's not an oversight, it's a deliberate exclusion." "Mom," Emily's voice dropped to a whisper, the tears reappearing on cue, "the rent is due tomorrow, $1,800. If we don't pay, we'll be evicted." Is that what David would have wanted? His daughter on the streets? The invocation of David's name using my dead husband as emotional ammunition snapped something inside me. My chest tightened, that familiar stress pain radiating through my ribcage, but this time it came with clarity rather than confusion. "David would have been heartbroken to see what you've become," I said quietly. "A manipulative, entitled stranger who sees her mother as an ATM. He would have been disgusted by your wedding charade." Emily's mask finally slipped completely, her face contorted into something ugly, primal. "You bitter old bitch. You're jealous because I have a life while you sit in this museum to Dad, pretending he was some saint when everyone knows he preferred his secretary to you." The lie was so vicious, so calculated to wound, that I actually laughed. David's secretary had been Harold Morrison, a 60-year-old grandfather of 7. That's your response? To fabricate lies about your deceased father? "Everything I'm saying is true," Emily screamed. "You were a terrible wife, a suffocating mother, and now you're a vindictive old woman who's going to die alone." Nathan grabbed Emily's arm, not in comfort but in warning. She was saying the quiet parts out loud, ruining their manipulation strategy. "What Margaret needs to understand," he said, his tone shifting to threatening, "is that we have legal options. Emily is your only heir. Everything you have will be hers eventually anyway. We're just asking for an advance on her inheritance." "My inheritance?" I smiled coldly. "Let me show you something." I disappeared inside, returning with a document I'd had prepared 3 days ago. Through the storm door glass, I held up the new will, making sure they could read the header, "The David Thompson Memorial Scholarship Fund. $400,000, I said clearly, donated to provide college scholarships for underprivileged students. Young people who will appreciate education, unlike my daughter who dropped out of her master's program after I paid $60,000 in tuition. The house will be sold and proceeds donated to Habitat for Humanity. My personal belongings go to Goodwill." The silence that followed was beautiful. Emily's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally, naked panic. "You can't do that," she whispered. "I already have. Signed, notarized, and filed with my attorney James Crawford. I'll contest it. I'll prove you're mentally incompetent." "With what money?" I asked simply. "You can't afford rent. How will you afford legal fees?" Nathan lunged at the door, rattling it violently. "Open this door. We need to talk face to face like family." "We're not family," I said, my voice carrying decades of suppressed truth. Family doesn't exclude family from weddings. Family doesn't threaten family with psychiatric institutions. Family doesn't use family as a credit card with a pulse. Emily collapsed to her knees on my porch, wailing with theatrical grief. "Please, Mom, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. Give us another chance." "You've had 4 years of chances. Each one cost me approximately $100,000. I'm out of chances and money for you." "You're killing us," she screamed. "We'll be homeless." "Is that what you want on your conscience? You're 34 years old with a college degree. Nathan's 36 with an MBA. If you become homeless, it's not my responsibility or my conscience. It's yours." I closed the front door on her continued screaming, the sound muffled but still audible through the walls. Through the Ring app, I watched them remain on my porch for another hour, alternating between pounding, pleading, and threatening. Finally, a police cruiser arrived. They'd called that wellness check after all. Officer Patricia Williams approached them first, and I watched Emily's animated gestures, pointing at the house, wiping away tears. Then, Officer Williams knocked professionally on my door. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to verify you're okay." I opened the door fully this time, standing straight and composed. "I'm perfectly fine, officer. My daughter is upset because I've stopped financing her lifestyle after being excluded from her wedding. She's having difficulty accepting financial independence." Officer Williams glanced back at Emily and Nathan, then at me. "Do you feel threatened?" "I feel harassed. They've been pounding on my door for 90 minutes. Would you like them formally trespassed?" Emily heard this and shrieked, "She's our mother. You can't trespass us from our childhood home." "Ma'am," Officer Williams addressed Emily, "this is Mrs. Thompson's property. If she wants you removed, you need to leave." The final image burned into my memory, Emily and Nathan being escorted to their BMW, Emily turning back one last time, her face twisted with such hatred it erased any lingering doubt about my decision. They weren't my family anymore. They were just 2 more strangers who'd mistaken my love for weakness, my generosity for obligation. And now, finally, they would learn the difference. The police cruiser's taillights had barely disappeared down Maple Street when my phone began buzzing with notifications. Not calls this time, Facebook alerts. I rarely used the platform, maintaining an account primarily to see occasional updates from David's relatives in Maine, but the sudden flood of activity made my stomach clench with familiar dread. Barbara stood at my door within minutes, her face etched with concern. "Margaret, honey, I think you need to see this. Emily's posting some very disturbing things." I invited her in my first guest since changing the locks, and we sat at my kitchen table as I opened Facebook with trembling fingers. Emily's profile exploded across my screen like a grenade of public humiliation. The first post, published 20 minutes ago, already had 47 reactions and climbing. "Urgent. My mentally declining mother has cut off all family support after showing severe signs of dementia. She's become paranoid, changed all locks, and is giving away Dad's money to strangers. If anyone knows a good elder law attorney in Vermont, please message me. We need help before she hurts herself or loses everything to scammers." The comments were already pouring in. Emily's yoga friends, Nathan's business associates, distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all offering sympathy and outrage. "Elder abuse is so common," wrote someone named Jessica. "You're such a good daughter for trying to help her," added another. But it was the photos that stopped my heart. Emily had posted pictures from my home, taken without my knowledge during their visits over the years. Photos carefully curated to support her narrative. Me in my bathrobe, looking disheveled, I'd had the flu, my kitchen with dishes in the sink after I'd cooked them Thanksgiving dinner, my living room with papers scattered on the coffee table, tax documents I'd been organizing. Each image had a caption, "The decline has been gradual but heartbreaking. She's stopped taking care of herself. The house David loved is falling apart." Then came the master stroke of manipulation, a video. I clicked play with numb fingers. It was from last Christmas. I remembered the moment. Emily had asked me to recite David's favorite poem, Yeats' When You Are Old. I'd broken down halfway through, overwhelmed by grief and memory. In context, it was a widow mourning her husband. But edited and captioned with "Mom can't even remember Dad's favorite poem anymore." The confusion is getting worse. It looked like dementia. This is character assassination, Barbara breathed, her hand covering her mouth. The second post was worse. For those asking, yes, we've tried getting her help. She refuses medical evaluation, classic symptom. She's given away $400,000 to various charities, probably scams, changed all her banking without telling family, installed paranoid security systems. We're devastated but have to protect her from herself. Nathan and I have started a GoFundMe for legal fees to get her proper care. A GoFundMe. My daughter was crowdfunding my forced institutionalization. The page already showed $1,200 raised, comments poured in with donations, $50 from the Hendersons praying for your family, $25 from yoga class Stay Strong Emily. I clicked on the donor list and felt bile rise in my throat. Emily's wedding guests, the same 150 people who'd celebrated while I sat at home, excluded, were now financing my daughter's attempt to have me declared incompetent. My phone rang. James Crawford, my attorney. Margaret, I'm getting calls from concerned citizens saying you need psychiatric help. What's happening? Character assassination via social media, I managed. Emily's painting me as demented because I cut off her money. Forward me everything. Screenshot all posts, comments, everything. This is defamation, harassment, and potentially criminal fraud if she's fundraising under false pretenses. As we spoke, a new post appeared. Update: Mom just had police remove us from her property. She's becoming violent and unpredictable. For those who've asked, yes, we excluded her from our small intimate vow renewal, not a wedding, because her behavior was already concerning. Dr. Rothstein warned us about challenging delusions. We're heartbroken, but must protect ourselves too. Vow renewal. She'd retroactively rewritten their wedding as a vow renewal to minimize my exclusion. The gaslighting was so comprehensive it took my breath away. Then I saw something that made my blood freeze. A photo of David's death certificate, circled date of death highlighted, with the caption, "For those saying she's always been difficult, Dad's death triggered this decline. Grief-induced psychosis is real. She never properly processed the loss. She was using David's death, the worst moment of my life, as a weapon. My husband's passing had become ammunition in her campaign to steal his money." The comments beneath were vicious. No wonder she's bitter, losing a husband like that. Grief can definitely trigger dementia in seniors. You're so brave, Emily, dealing with this. Barbara grabbed my hand. Margaret, this is evil. Pure evil. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Thompson. I'm Sarah from WCAX News. We're running a story on elder financial abuse in Vermont. Your daughter contacted us about your situation. Can we get your comment? The media. Emily had gone to the media. Another text. This is Dr. Patricia Hoffman from Senior Services. We've received multiple concerns about your welfare. Please contact us immediately. And another. Margaret, it's cousin Joan from Portland. Just saw Emily's posts. Do you need me to come help? This sounds serious. My reputation, built over 40 years of teaching, volunteering, church attendance, destroyed in 30 minutes of social media posts. Every relationship I had was now poisoned by Emily's narrative. Even if I proved my sanity, the doubt would linger. Isn't that the woman whose daughter said had dementia? I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited until nothing remained but dry heaves. My reflection showed a woman under siege, pale, shaking, aged a decade in an hour. Emily had found the nuclear option. Public humiliation disguised as concern. Through the bathroom window, I saw a news van pull up outside. Barbara knocked softly. Margaret, there are reporters at your door. I couldn't move, couldn't think. My daughter hadn't just cut me out of her life or tried to steal my money. She was systematically destroying my reputation, my dignity, my very identity. And she was doing it while claiming to love me, garnering sympathy and donations from strangers who would never know the truth. The doorbell rang, then rang again. Through the Ring app, I could see a young reporter with perfect teeth and predatory eyes, microphone in hand, cameraman behind her. Mrs. Thompson? We just want your side of the story. Your daughter says you're suffering from dementia-related paranoia. Any comment? This was my life now, defending my sanity to strangers because my daughter wanted my money. The child I'd carried for 9 months, whose fever I'd watched through sleepless nights, who'd written "I love you to the moon and back" in hundreds of childhood cards. That child was now publicly executing my character for a GoFundMe payout. I sank to the bathroom floor, David's wedding ring clicking against the tile, the same sound, the same floor, but now the grief wasn't just for him. It was for the complete annihilation of everything I'd believed about motherhood, family, and love. Outside, the reporter continued knocking, her voice carrying through the walls. "Mrs. Thompson, your daughter says you've given away $400,000. Can you confirm?" The assassination was complete, and it was only Monday. Barbara stayed with me through that endless Monday night, sleeping on my couch despite my protests, her presence the only thing keeping me tethered to sanity. By Tuesday morning, the social media wildfire had become an inferno. Emily's GoFundMe had raised $8,000. The local news had run a segment titled "Burlington Daughter Seeks Help for Mother with Dementia." My phone had logged 217 missed calls. At 9 sharp, a black Lexus pulled into my driveway, not Emily's BMW this time. Through the Ring camera, I watched a man in an expensive suit emerge, briefcase in hand, followed by Emily and Nathan. The man had the predatory bearing of someone who destroyed lives for billable hours. The doorbell rang with aggressive persistence. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Richard Blackwood from Blackwood & Associates. I represent your daughter in a matter of urgent family concern. We need to discuss your recent erratic behavior and its impact on your family's well-being." I didn't answer. Barbara squeezed my hand as we watched through the app. Blackwood continued, his voice carrying the practiced authority of courtroom intimidation. "Mrs. Thompson, avoiding this conversation won't help your situation. We have substantial documentation of your mental decline. Multiple witnesses, medical concerns, financial irregularities. It would be better for everyone if we handled this privately." Emily stepped forward, and I noticed she'd dressed strategically conservative navy dress, minimal makeup, pearl earrings I'd given her for her 21st birthday. The grieving daughter costume. "Mom, please," she called out, her voice perfectly calibrated for distress. "We're not angry. We just want to help you. Dr. Hoffman from Senior Services is worried. So is Reverend Mitchell from your church. Everyone sees you're struggling." Reverend Mitchell. She'd contacted my church. The violation felt like ice water in my veins. Nathan added his performance. "Margaret, even your neighbor Barbara told us you've been acting strange. Keeping odd hours. Talking to yourself. We have it all documented." Barbara gasped beside me. "I never said any such thing. I mentioned you were upset about the wedding." "They're twisting everything," I whispered. Blackwood pulled out his phone, his voice now carrying threat beneath the professional veneer. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm prepared to file for emergency conservatorship today. Vermont law allows expedited hearings when there's immediate danger to an elder's welfare or assets. You've given away $400,000. You've cut off family support systems. You've isolated yourself. These are textbook symptoms of dementia-related paranoia. However," he continued, his tone shifting to false reasonableness, "if you sign a limited power of attorney just for financial matters, to protect your assets, we can avoid the public spectacle of a competency hearing. Think of your reputation, your standing in the community." The manipulation was masterful, threatening public humiliation while offering a reasonable alternative that would hand control to Emily. Through the window, I could see neighbors beginning to gather, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from across the street, the young couple from 2 houses down, all witnessing my public shaming. Then a second car arrived, a white sedan with official plates. A woman emerged wearing a senior services badge, Dr. Patricia Hoffman, the one Emily had mentioned in her posts. "Mrs. Thompson?" Dr. Hoffman called out. "I'm here for a welfare check. Your family has raised serious concerns. If you don't respond, I'll have to request police assistance for forced entry. Forced entry. Into my own home. Because my daughter wanted my money." Barbara stood up, fury blazing in her eyes. "This is enough." Before I could stop her, she marched to the door and flung it open. "You should all be ashamed." Barbara's voice carried the righteous anger of a protective friend. "This woman raised you, Emily, paid for your entire adult life, and because she finally said no to your greed, you're trying to destroy her?" Emily's mask slipped for just a moment, a flash of pure rage before reassembling. "Barbara, we appreciate your concern, but you don't understand the full situation. Mom's been showing signs for months." "Signs of what? Having boundaries?" Protecting her money from parasites? Blackwood interjected smoothly. Ma'am, I'd advise you not to interfere in family matters. You could be charged with elder abuse yourself if you're preventing Mrs. Thompson from receiving necessary care. Necessary care? Barbara laughed bitterly. She needs care from her daughter's extortion? Dr. Hoffman stepped forward, her expression professionally neutral. I need to see Mrs. Thompson personally to assess her condition. I knew I had no choice. Hiding would only fuel their narrative. With legs that felt like water, I walked to the door, standing beside Barbara. I'm perfectly fine, I said, my voice steadier than expected. Dr. Hoffman studied me with clinical eyes. Mrs. Thompson, your family reports you've been exhibiting paranoid behavior, financial recklessness. I stopped funding my adult daughter's lifestyle after she excluded me from her wedding. That's not paranoia, it's self-respect. Emily interjected, tears streaming down her face. She'd learned to cry on command years ago, a skill from her high school drama club. Mom, it wasn't a wedding. It was just a small vow renewal. You're confused. You wore a $30,000 wedding dress. You had a 7-tier cake. There were 150 guests. You honeymooned in Bora Bora. That's not a small vow renewal, that's a wedding I financed but couldn't attend. Blackwood pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents. Mrs. Thompson, we have affidavits from concerned parties. Your pharmacist notes irregular medication patterns. I buy vitamins and aspirin. Your daughter's therapist confirms family dysfunction. The therapist I pay $400 per session? Multiple witnesses report personality changes. I stopped being a doormat. If that's a personality change, it's long overdue. Dr. Hoffman was taking notes, her expression unreadable. The neighbors had formed a small crowd now, phones out, recording everything. My humiliation would be on social media within minutes. Then something unexpected happened. A familiar voice called out from the gathered crowd. This is absolutely disgusting. Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor, pushed through with her walker, her face flushed with indignation. I've lived next to Margaret Thompson for 20 years. She's the sharpest, kindest woman on this street. She brought me groceries during COVID, drove me to chemotherapy when I had cancer. And you, Emily, I remember when you'd visit only when you needed money, never for Sunday dinners, never for holidays unless there were gifts. The young couple stepped forward too. We saw the wedding photos on Instagram, the woman said. How do you exclude your own mother from your wedding and then claim she's mentally incompetent? The crowd was turning. Emily's public tribunal was backfiring. Nathan grabbed Emily's arm. We should go. But Emily, in her narcissistic rage, couldn't stop. You're all being manipulated. She's sick. She needs help. Can't you see? What I see, Mrs. Patterson interrupted, is elder abuse, financial exploitation, and a daughter who should be ashamed. Dr. Hoffman closed her notebook. Mrs. Thompson, based on my preliminary assessment, you appear cogent and capable. However, I recommend a formal evaluation to definitively address these concerns. I'll schedule one immediately, I said, with an independent psychiatrist of my choosing. Blackwood's composure finally cracked. This isn't over. Vermont law protects vulnerable adults, even from themselves. We'll be filing formal proceedings. James Crawford's voice cut through the chaos. My attorney had arrived, striding up the driveway with the confidence of someone who'd already won. Mr. Blackwood, James said coolly, I hope you have substantial evidence for these accusations because my client is preparing a defamation suit. The Facebook posts alone constitute libel. The GoFundMe raised under false pretenses? That's fraud. And this public harassment? We're documenting everything. The crowd had grown larger. Someone was live streaming. Emily's campaign to destroy me was becoming her own public execution. As they retreated to their cars, Emily turned back one last time. The mask was completely gone now, replaced by naked hatred. This isn't over, Mother. Everything you have should be mine, will be mine. The words hung in the air like a curse, witnessed by dozens, recorded by phones, preserved forever in digital amber. As their cars disappeared down Maple Street, I collapsed into Barbara's arms, my body shaking with adrenaline and delayed terror. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. The afternoon following the public confrontation brought a deceptive calm, like the eye of a hurricane. James Crawford sat at my dining room table, legal documents spread before him like battle plans, while Barbara brewed her third pot of coffee. The live stream video from this morning had gone viral, 30,000 views and climbing. Comments poured in, most supporting me, but the damage to my privacy was irreversible. "Margaret," James said, adjusting his reading glasses, "they've officially filed. Emergency petition for conservatorship, citing imminent danger to your estate and well-being." The words hit like physical blows. My own daughter had formally initiated legal proceedings to declare me incompetent. The papers trembled in my hands as I read Emily and Nathan's sworn affidavits, each line a calculated distortion of truth. "Margaret Thompson has exhibited severe cognitive decline following her husband's death," Emily had written. "She gives money to strangers, claims family members are parasites, and has developed persecution complexes. She recently accused me of having a secret wedding when it was merely an intimate vow renewal she'd forgotten we'd discussed." Forgotten we'd discussed? I felt the familiar nausea rising. "James, she never mentioned any vow renewal. There are wedding vendors, invoices, a marriage certificate filed with the state. I know, I've subpoenaed everything. The marriage certificate alone destroys her credibility." He pulled out another document. "But this is what concerns me." It was a letter on official letterhead from Dr. Martin Rothstein, the therapist I'd been paying for monthly. Based on family reports and concerning behaviors described, Mrs. Auntie Thompson appears to be experiencing dementia-related paranoia with particular fixation on financial matters. Immediate intervention recommended. He's never even met me. The betrayal felt like acid in my throat. I've paid him $48,000 over 2 years for their therapy, and he's diagnosing me without examination? It's unethical, and we'll file a complaint with the licensing board. But right now, we need your psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Morrison can see you tomorrow morning. That evening, as Barbara helped me prepare dinner I couldn't eat, my phone rang with an unknown Burlington number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Thompson? This is Michael Walsh, Nathan's brother." I nearly dropped the phone. Nathan had mentioned his brother exactly once in 4 years, dismissing him as a failure who couldn't hack it in real business. "I know you have no reason to trust me," Michael continued, his voice carrying a weariness I recognized. "But I need to warn you about my brother. He did this before." My knees buckled. Barbara guided me to a chair. "Our mother, Patricia Walsh, lived in San Diego. 5 years ago, Nathan convinced her she needed his help managing her retirement accounts after Dad died. Within 18 months, he'd drained $600,000. When she tried to stop him, he had her declared incompetent. Where is she now? My voice came out strangled. Memory care facility in Escondido. She doesn't have dementia, Mrs. Thompson. She never did. But once you're in the system, once that label is applied, it's almost impossible to escape. Nathan visits her monthly to make sure she can't tell anyone what really happened. The room spun. Emily hadn't just married a manipulator, she'd married a predator who'd already destroyed his own mother. Why are you telling me this? Because I couldn't save my mother, but maybe I can save you. I have documents, bank records, the original psychiatric evaluation that was clearly bogus. Nathan doesn't know I kept copies. Would you testify? A long pause. He's my brother, Mrs. Thompson. But what he did to our mother, what he's trying to do to you. Yes. I'll testify. After Michael hung up, I sat in stunned silence. The pattern was clear now. Nathan was a professional. Emily wasn't just greedy. She'd partnered with someone who'd literally institutionalized his mother for money. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. Through the Ring camera, I saw a young woman in scrubs holding a medical bag. She rang again, then knocked, then called out, "Mrs. Thompson? I'm from Visiting Nurses. Your daughter arranged for an evaluation. She's very concerned about you living alone." I didn't respond. The woman made notes on a tablet, then left a card in my mailbox. Another documented refusal of care for Emily's file. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Mom, the nurse says you wouldn't answer. This paranoid behavior is exactly what we're worried about. Just let us help you. Sign the papers and this all goes away." Then another. "Nathan's mother is very happy in her facility. Beautiful grounds. Excellent care. You'd like it." The threat wasn't even veiled anymore. They were telling me explicitly, comply or be institutionalized like Patricia Walsh. I called James immediately. "They're escalating. sending medical professionals to my door, creating a paper trail of refused evaluations. Document everything. Every visit, every text, every interaction. We're building our counter case. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the street, waiting for the next ambush. At 3 a.m., a car drove slowly past Nathan's Tesla, unmistakable in its pearl-white gleam. It paused outside my house for 30 seconds, then continued. A message, "We're watching." I thought about Patricia Walsh, trapped in a memory care facility, labeled demented when her only crime was trusting her son. How many other mothers were locked away like her? How many estates plundered while the victims were silenced behind institutional walls? By dawn, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't just defend, I'd attack. I called Michael Walsh back. I need everything you have on Nathan. Every document. Every piece of evidence. And I need Patricia's story public. Are you sure? Once this comes out, they've already destroyed my privacy, attempted to destroy my reputation. I have nothing left to lose except my freedom, and I won't let them take that. Michael agreed to overnight the documents. Then I called a journalist friend from my teaching days, Susan Chen, now working at the Boston Globe. Susan, I have a story for you. Elder financial abuse, forced institutionalization, and a son who's done this before. Margaret, are you sure you want to go public? They already made it public, but they controlled the narrative. Now I'm taking it back. As morning broke over Burlington, I stood in my kitchen, David's kitchen, our kitchen, and prepared for war. Emily thought she was fighting a confused old woman. She was wrong. She was fighting a mother who'd finally learned the difference between love and exploitation. A woman who'd discovered that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be destroyed by those who claim to love you. The phone rang. James Crawford. Margaret, I just got word. The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday. 3 days. They're pushing for immediate conservatorship, citing urgent circumstances. 3 days to save my freedom. 3 days to prove my sanity. 3 days to expose Nathan and Emily for what they really were. Then we'd better get started, I said, my voice steady as granite. The real fight was just beginning. If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thursday morning arrived with Michael Walsh's FedEx package, a box that felt heavier than its physical weight suggested. Inside lay the documented destruction of Patricia Walsh. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, forged signatures on property transfers, and most damning, a video recorded on Michael's phone 3 years ago. Barbara and I watched it together in horrified silence. Patricia Walsh, lucid and articulate, pleading with a nursing home administrator, "I don't have dementia. My son put me here to steal my money. Please, call my other son Michael, please." The administrator's response was chillingly professional. "Mrs. Walsh, agitation is common with your condition. I'll have the nurse bring your medications." "Dear God," Barbara whispered, "she's completely coherent." The parallels to my situation were undeniable. Nathan had perfected his technique: first isolate the victim from support systems, then create a paper trail of concerning behavior, finally strike with legal proceedings before the victim could mount a defense. Dr. Morrison's psychiatric evaluation that morning was thorough: 3 hours of cognitive tests, memory assessments, psychological screenings. Unlike the cursory concern of Emily's hired professionals, this was legitimate medical examination. "Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Morrison said afterward, "your cognitive function scores are in the 95th percentile for your age group. Your memory is intact, reasoning sound, and there's zero indication of dementia or any other cognitive impairment. I'll have my report ready by tomorrow, but I want you to know what's being done to you is criminal." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message contained a single photo that made my blood freeze. Emily and Nathan inside my house. My current house. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. last night, while I'd been sleeping. The photo showed them in my study, Nathan photographing my financial documents while Emily went through my desk drawers. They still had a way in despite the changed locks. A window? The garage? The violation made me physically ill. I called James immediately. They broke into my house last night. Did the cameras catch them? I checked the Ring app with shaking fingers. Nothing. Somehow they'd avoided every camera. They knew the blind spots, I realized. They've been studying my security system. Change everything, James ordered. Stay with Barbara tonight. I'm calling the police. But when Officer Williams arrived, she looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Thompson, without video evidence or signs of forced entry, it's your word against theirs. And given the current legal situation, you mean because my daughter is claiming I'm demented? I'm not saying I believe it, ma'am, but it complicates things. The system was already working against me. Emily's public campaign had poisoned even law enforcement's perception. That afternoon, Susan Chen from the Boston Globe arrived. We sat in Barbara's living room. I couldn't bear being in my violated home as I laid out everything. The financial abuse, the wedding exclusion, Michael's evidence about Patricia Walsh. This is explosive, Susan said, reviewing the documents. But Emily's gotten ahead of the narrative. The GoFundMe has 12,000 donors now. She's been on 3 podcasts about caring for parents with dementia. Podcasts? My heart sank. Susan pulled up her laptop, showing me Emily's appearance on The Caregiver's Burden, a popular wellness podcast. Emily's voice filled the room, dripping with false compassion. The hardest part is accepting that the mother who raised you is gone. This angry, paranoid person wearing her face that's not really her. It's the disease. When she accused me of stealing, when she changed her will to spite me, I had to remember, that's not my mom talking. It's the dementia. I had to run to Barbara's bathroom, dry heaving over the toilet. My daughter wasn't just lying, she was building a media empire on those lies. Book deals would follow, speaking engagements, a career built on my destruction. When I returned, Susan was taking notes furiously. Margaret, I need to ask difficult questions. Is there any truth to the financial concerns? Have you given money to anyone besides Emily? I donated $50,000 to David's memorial scholarship at UVM. That's it. Can you prove Emily's wedding wasn't just a vow renewal? The marriage certificate is public record, filed February 12th. Susan nodded. I can work with this. The article will run Sunday, the day before your hearing. Maximum impact. That evening, as Barbara and I ate dinner I couldn't taste, another text arrived. This time it was a video security footage from inside the memory care facility. Nathan visiting his mother, but the audio was clear. Still playing confused, Mom? Good. Keep it up for 3 more years until the statute of limitations runs out. Then you can recover all you want, the money will be gone, and legally untouchable. Patricia's response was barely audible but devastating. I hope you burn in hell. Nathan's laugh was caught perfectly. Hell doesn't exist, Mom, but poverty does, and thanks to you, I'll never experience it. Michael had sent it with a note. Hidden camera I installed last month. This is who my brother really is. I forwarded everything to James, my hands shaking with rage and fear. This wasn't just greed, it was sadistic. Nathan enjoyed the suffering he caused. My phone rang. Emily. Hi, Mom. Her voice was manic, almost giddy. Great news. The facility we've selected for you has an opening. Pine Grove Senior Care. It's beautiful gardens, art therapy, even a piano in the rec room. You'll love it. Emily, I'm not going to any facility. Oh, Mom. Her tone shifted to condescending pity. You don't understand. It's not up to you anymore. The hearing Monday is just a formality. Dr. Rothstein's testimony, the visiting nurse reports, your refusal to cooperate with welfare checks, the judge will have no choice. I have my own psychiatric evaluation stating I'm completely competent. She laughed a sound that chilled me more than her anger ever had. One doctor's opinion against the mountain of evidence we've compiled? Besides, Nathan knows Judge Harrison from the country club. They golf together every Saturday. The corruption ran deeper than I'd imagined. They'd already influenced the judge. Emily, I said quietly, what happened to you? When did you become this person? A pause. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from her before, cold, ancient, utterly devoid of humanity, I've always been this person, Mother. You were just too desperate for love to see it. Dad knew. Why do you think he worked such long hours? He was hiding from both of us. The cruelty of invoking David suggesting he hadn't loved me was breathtaking. But it also revealed Emily's true nature, someone who would weaponize any pain, exploit any vulnerability, destroy any soul for money. Goodbye, Emily. See you Monday, Mom. Bring a suitcase. Pine Grove doesn't allow many personal items, but you can bring photos. Maybe that one of me at kindergarten graduation back when you still mattered. The line went dead. Barbara held me as I sobbed, not for the daughter I'd lost, but for the daughter who'd never existed. Emily hadn't become a monster. She'd always been one, wearing the mask of a loving child, waiting for the perfect moment to feed. Monday would determine everything: freedom or institutionalization, justice or theft, truth or the elaborate fiction Emily had sold to the world. 3 days to save my life. Friday morning shattered what remained of my composure. The TD Bank Fraud Department called at 7:30, their tone professionally alarmed. "Mrs. Thompson, we've detected unusual activity on your accounts. Someone attempted to open 3 credit cards using your social security number last night. The applications were flagged due to our new security protocols." My coffee mug slipped, shattering on Barbara's kitchen floor. Dark liquid spread like blood across the white tiles, an omen of worse revelations to come. "The applications," the representative continued, "listed Emily Thompson Walsh as an authorized user with full spending privileges. The requested credit limits totaled $90,000. 90,000. They weren't just trying to declare me incompetent, they were actively committing identity theft while building their case that I couldn't manage my finances. "There's more," the representative said gently, recognizing my stunned silence. "We found 5 other cards opened in the past 6 months at different institutions. Current combined balance, $43,000. The room tilted. Barbara caught my arm as my knees buckled, guiding me to a chair. 43,000 in secret debt, accumulated while Emily smiled at me, called me her guardian angel, accepted my checks with practiced gratitude. "Are you saying my daughter has been stealing my identity for 6 months? "I cannot make that legal determination, ma'am, but the applications originated from IP addresses traced to Boston, and the delivery addresses match an apartment leased to Nathan and Emily Walsh." I ended the call and immediately dialed James Crawford. His assistant said he was in court but would call back within the hour. An hour felt like a lifetime when your child was systematically destroying you. Barbara held my hand as we sat in stunned silence. Then my phone buzzed another unknown number, but this time the area code was California. San Diego. "Hello?" A frail voice, barely above a whisper. "Is this Margaret Thompson?" "Yes." "Who is this?" "Patricia Walsh, Nathan's mother." Michael smuggled me a phone. "I have 15 minutes before the nurse checks. I need to warn you about something Michael doesn't know." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mrs. Walsh, I'm so sorry for what happened." "Listen carefully," she interrupted, her voice gaining strength through urgency. "Nathan has a partner, someone who helps him. A woman named Carol Manning. She works at Adult Protective Services in Vermont. She's the one who fast-tracks the incompetency cases." The final piece clicked into place. Dr. Hoffman's quick appearance, the expedited hearing, the system seeming to work against me. It wasn't paranoia. It was conspiracy. "She gets a percentage," Patricia continued. 20% of whatever Nathan extracts. She did the same thing here in California before moving to Vermont 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Right when Emily and Nathan had started dating. "Mrs. Walsh, would you testify to this?" A bitter laugh. "From a memory care facility? Who'd believe the crazy old woman?" That's the beauty of Nathan's system. He discredits us so thoroughly that even the truth sounds like dementia. But Michael's video means nothing without context. Nathan will claim I'm having a lucid moment, that he visits despite my confusion, that he's the devoted son. He's thought of everything. The line crackled. "I have to go. The nurse is coming. But Margaret, fight. Fight harder than I did. Don't let them bury you alive like they buried me." The call ended. I sat frozen, processing the magnitude of what I faced. Not just a greedy daughter and her husband, but a criminal network designed to imprison and rob elderly women. James called back immediately when I told him about Patricia's revelation. "Jesus Christ, this changes everything. If we can prove conspiracy with an APS employee, how do we prove it?" "Patricia's been declared incompetent. Her testimony is worthless. Legally. We need documentation. Financial records showing payments to Carol Manning. Connection patterns between her cases and Nathan's victims. Victims plural? Margaret, if they've done this twice successfully, there are probably others. We need to find them." I spent the afternoon with Susan Chen and a forensic accountant James had hired, tracing patterns through public records. What we found was horrifying. 7 elderly women in Vermont and New Hampshire, all declared incompetent in the past 2 years, all with substantial estates, all with Carol Manning as the investigating APS worker. "This is a serial crime," Susan breathed, her journalist instincts on fire. "This is Pulitzer material." But I couldn't celebrate. My daughter hadn't just married a criminal, she'd become one. Enthusiastically. The Emily who'd opened 43,000 in fraudulent credit cards wasn't corrupted by Nathan, she was his eager accomplice. That evening, as Barbara and I picked at Chinese takeout, my phone rang with Emily's ringtone still set to "You Are My Sunshine," the song I'd sung to her every night until she was 12. "Hello, Emily." "Mom!" Her voice was bright, almost manic. "Great news! I've been contacted by a publisher. They want my memoir about caring for a parent with dementia. Love in the Time of Forgetting, isn't that beautiful? The advance is $200,000. The cruelty was breathtaking. She was pre-selling the story of my destruction, profiting from a disease I didn't have, writing my obituary while I still breathed. "Emily, I know about the credit cards." Silence. Then, "What credit cards?" "The 43,000 in fraudulent debt you've accumulated in my name, the 90,000 you tried to open last night." "Mom, this is exactly what Dr. Rothstein warned us about. False memories, paranoid accusations. You're getting worse. The bank has IP addresses, security footage from ATMs. You're on camera, Emily." Another pause. When she spoke again, the mask had slipped. "Prove it. Go ahead. Take your own daughter to court for fraud while simultaneously claiming you're mentally competent. See how that looks to Judge Harrison." She was right. Every action I took to defend myself could be twisted into evidence of paranoia. It was brilliantly evil. "Oh, and Mom?" Emily's voice had turned sing-song, the way it did when she was little and had gotten away with something. "The hearing's been moved up. Sunday instead of Monday. Carol Manning expedited it due to urgent concerns about your deteriorating condition. See you in 36 hours. She hung up. Sunday. The Globe article would run the same day, no time for public opinion to shift. They'd orchestrated everything perfectly. I looked at Barbara, my friend, my witness, my sole anchor to sanity. "They're going to win, aren't they?" Barbara gripped my shoulders, her eyes fierce. "Not if I have anything to say about it. Margaret Thompson, you taught high school for 40 years. You face down teenage sociopaths every day. Your daughter is just another bully with a bigger vocabulary." But as night fell over Burlington, I knew this was different. Emily wasn't just a bully. She was my heart walking around outside my body, choosing to destroy me for money, and in 36 hours, she might succeed. Saturday morning arrived with an official knock that felt like a death knell. Through Barbara's front window, I watched Carol Manning exit her state vehicle, the woman Patricia Walsh had identified as Nathan's accomplice. She looked deceptively ordinary. Mid-40s, sensible pantsuit, clipboard in hand, the bureaucratic facade of someone who destroyed lives with forms and procedures. "Don't let her in," Barbara whispered, but we both knew refusing would only strengthen their case. I opened the door, my spine straight despite the trembling in my hands. Carol Manning's smile was professionally warm, her eyes calculating as a snake's. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm here for a mandatory pre-hearing evaluation. The court requires an updated assessment before tomorrow's proceedings. My attorney should be present. This is just a routine welfare check, not a legal proceeding. However, refusing to cooperate will be noted in my report. The trap was elegant refuse and appear paranoid, comply and risk giving her ammunition." I stepped aside, allowing the viper into Barbara's home. Carol's examination of me was theatrical, designed to unsettle. She studied my appearance with exaggerated concern, scribbled notes when I spoke, raised her eyebrows at normal responses. Every gesture calculated to make me self-conscious, to make me seem unstable. "Mrs. Thompson, your daughter reports you've given away $400,000 to strangers. I donated $50,000 to my late husband's memorial scholarship. The rest went to Emily and Nathan over 4 years. So you're saying your daughter is lying?" "I'm saying she's misrepresenting facts." Carol made a note. "Paranoid ideation regarding family members. Classic symptom." "That's not." "Mrs. Thompson, do you know what day it is?" "Saturday, March 2nd. What year? The infantilizing questions continued for 20 minutes, each answer twisted into evidence of dysfunction. When I mentioned the credit card fraud, Carol's expression turned pitying. Mrs. Thompson, these fantasies about identity theft are concerning. Your daughter mentioned you've been making wild accusations. The bank has evidence. Have you filed a police report? She knew I hadn't, knew that doing so would look like a demented mother attacking her caring daughter. Mrs. Thompson, I need to be frank. Your resistance to help, these paranoid accusations, the dramatic financial decisions, they all point to significant cognitive decline. Pine Grove is an excellent facility. Your daughter has already put down a deposit to hold your room. The casual cruelty of that revelation Emily had already paid to imprison me made bile rise in my throat. But something in Carol's smug expression triggered my teacher instincts, the ones that had helped me spot cheating students for 4 decades. Tell me, Miss Manning, I said slowly, how many elderly women have you evaluated for conservatorship in the past 2 years? Her smile flickered. I don't see how that's relevant. 7, 8, all with substantial estates, all with suddenly concerned relatives? Mrs. Thompson, these conspiracy theories. Is Patricia Walsh still at that facility in San Diego, the one you helped put her in before you moved to Vermont? Carol Manning went absolutely still. For 3 seconds, her mask slipped completely, revealing something predatory and calculating beneath. I don't know what you're talking about. Michael Walsh sends his regards. He's been quite helpful with documentation. Carol stood abruptly, her professional demeanor cracking. This evaluation is complete. My report will reflect your severe paranoid delusions and hostility toward those trying to help you. After she left, Barbara emerged from where she'd been recording everything on her phone. Did you see her face when you mentioned Patricia Walsh? We rattled her. But it might not matter. She'll write whatever report Emily needs. James Crawford called an hour later. Margaret, I've been digging into Carol Manning. She's evaluated 11 elderly women in 2 years, all declared incompetent, all wealthy. All had adult children who suddenly became concerned about their parents' mental state. Can we prove the connection to Nathan? I found something. Small deposits to her account from a consulting firm called Family Solutions LLC. Guess who owns it? Nathan. Through 3 shell companies, but yes, he's been paying her $24,000 per successful conservatorship. The scope of the operation was staggering. This wasn't just about me, it was a production line of elder abuse, destroying women systematically for profit. That afternoon, an unexpected ally emerged. My former student, now Judge Rebecca Martinez from New Hampshire, called after seeing the Globe article online Susan had published early to the digital edition. Mrs. Thompson, I've been watching similar cases in my jurisdiction. What's happening to you is part of a larger pattern. I can't intervene directly, but I can provide testimony about the systemic nature of these schemes. Hope flickered, fragile as a candle in wind. But evening brought devastating news. Michael Walsh called, his voice broken. They moved my mother. Nathan found out I was helping you. She's been transferred to a facility in Nevada. I don't even know which one. Patricia Walsh, my key witness, had vanished into the system, likely sedated and silenced forever. The evil was so comprehensive, so calculated, it took my breath away. Emily texted at midnight, "Can't sleep, Mom? Excited about tomorrow? Don't worry, Pine Grove has excellent sedatives. You'll sleep forever." The threat wasn't subtle. They intended to medicate me into submission, to chemically lobotomize me until I was as silent as Patricia Walsh. I sat in Barbara's guest room looking at photos on my phone. Emily at 5, missing her front teeth, grinning at the camera. Emily at 16, rolling her eyes but smiling as I adjusted her prom dress. Emily at 25, hugging me at her college graduation, whispering, "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom." When had that grateful young woman become this monster? Or had the monster always been there, waiting beneath the surface like a cancer, feeding on my love until it was strong enough to devour me completely? Tomorrow would bring the hearing. Judge Harrison, Nathan's golf buddy, would preside. Carol Manning would testify. Dr. Rothstein would appear via video link. Emily would cry perfectly timed tears. And I would fight with everything I had left. Even knowing the system was rigged, the verdict potentially predetermined, my freedom hanging by a thread my own daughter was eager to cut. The clock struck 1 a.m. In 32 hours, I would either be free or imprisoned. In 32 hours, I would know if truth could triumph over conspiracy. In 32 hours, I would face my daughter in court and see if any humanity remained in the child I'd raised. Sleep never came. I spent the remaining darkness preparing for war, knowing that tomorrow I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for Patricia Walsh, for the 7 women in Vermont, for every mother whose child had chosen money over love. The battle for my freedom would begin at sunrise. Sunday morning arrived with deceptive calm, the Burlington courthouse standing against a gray sky that promised snow. I dressed carefully in my Navy suit, the one I'd worn to David's funeral, the one that made me look respectable, competent, sane. My hands shook as I fastened the pearl necklace David had given me for our 30th anniversary, each pearl a year of genuine love, unlike the counterfeit affection my daughter peddled. The courtroom was already filling when James Crawford and I arrived. Emily sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a demure gray dress I'd never seen before, probably purchased specifically to look like a grieving daughter. Nathan beside her in his best suit, his hand resting possessively on her shoulder. They'd positioned themselves perfectly for the judge's view, the concerned young couple trying to help a declining parent. But it was the gallery that stopped my heart, packed with faces some familiar, many strangers. The story had exploded overnight after Susan's article. There were reporters with notebooks, elderly women who'd read about the case, even some of my former students. The public scrutiny Emily had weaponized against me was now a double-edged sword. Judge Harrison entered a silver-haired man in his 60s who indeed looked like someone who'd share brandy with Nathan at the country club. His expression was unreadable as he called the court to order. Richard Blackwood stood first, his voice carrying practiced authority. "Your Honor, we're here because Margaret Thompson, age 72, has exhibited alarming cognitive decline that threatens her financial security and personal welfare. Her daughter, Emily Thompson Walsh, seeks conservatorship only as a last resort to protect her mother from herself." The lies flowed smooth as poison. Blackwood presented Carol Manning's report, Dr. Rothstein's letter, the refused welfare checks, the paranoid security systems, the delusional accusations of theft. Each piece of evidence carefully curated to paint me as a woman descending into dementia. Then Emily took the stand. Her performance was masterful, voice breaking at just the right moments, tears perfectly timed, hands trembling as she described my transformation. "She was always such a loving, generous mother," Emily said, dabbing at her eyes. "But after Dad died, something broke. The accusations started saying I stole from her, that I excluded her from events she'd forgotten about. She's given away hundreds of thousands to strangers while her own daughter struggles to pay rent." "Mrs. Walsh," Blackwood prompted gently, "tell us about the wedding incident." Emily's tears intensified. "There was no wedding, Your Honor. Nathan and I did a small vow renewal for our anniversary, just immediate family at a restaurant. Mom has constructed this elaborate fantasy about a grand wedding she wasn't invited to. It breaks my heart, but it shows how far her mind has deteriorated. The gaslighting was so comprehensive I felt reality tilting. For a moment, I actually questioned myself, had there been a wedding? Then James squeezed my hand, grounding me in truth. Nathan testified next, his lies smooth as silk. "Margaret has always been difficult, but lately she's become impossible. She accuses us of crimes, threatens us, has even called the police on her own daughter. We're not asking for her money, we're asking for the ability to protect her from scammers and her own impaired judgment." Carol Manning followed, her testimony clinical and damning. "In my professional assessment, Mrs. Thompson exhibits clear signs of moderate dementia with paranoid features. She's constructed elaborate conspiracy theories involving multiple individuals. Without intervention, she'll likely lose everything to her delusions. By lunch break, I felt buried alive under their lies." The judge had nodded along to their testimony, seeming sympathetic to Emily's tears. Even some gallery members looked at me with pity rather than support. But James Crawford had been waiting. After lunch, he stood with the confidence of a man holding aces. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that this isn't about Margaret Thompson's mental state, it's about financial exploitation disguised as concern." He started with my psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Morrison, presenting my perfect cognitive scores, my spotless bill of mental health. Then came the financial records, $400,000 transferred to Emily and Nathan over 4 years, meticulously documented. Now, James said, pulling up a projection screen, let's address this vow renewal that Mrs. Walsh claims occurred. The marriage certificate appeared on screen. Date, February 12th. Location, Four Seasons, Boston. Officiating party, Rabbi David Goldstein. I've subpoenaed the invoices, James continued. Photos flashed on screen. Florist bill for $28,000, catering for $35,000, photographer for $8,000. Does this look like a small vow renewal at a restaurant? Emily's face had gone white. Nathan whispered furiously to Blackwood. Furthermore, James said, his voice gaining momentum, I present evidence of systematic fraud. The credit card statements appeared, $43,000 in Emily's name using Margaret's social security number, the bank's fraud report. The security footage from ATMs showing Emily withdrawing cash on cards Margaret never knew existed. Objection. Blackwood shot to his feet. These are unsubstantiated allegations. Then let's substantiate them, James said calmly. I call Michael Walsh to the stand. The courtroom doors opened. Michael walked in, his face grim but determined. Nathan's expression shifted from confident to cornered as his brother approached the witness stand. Michael's testimony was devastating. He detailed Nathan's systematic destruction of their mother, the forged documents, the bribes to facility staff to keep Patricia Walsh sedated and silent. He played the video of Nathan telling their mother to keep playing confused until the statute of limitations expired. Your Honor, Michael said, his voice heavy with shame, my brother is a predator who targets elderly women with money. He's done this before. He's trying to do it again. And Emily Thompson Walsh isn't his victim, she's his accomplice. The courtroom erupted. Judge Harrison called for order, his previously sympathetic expression now troubled. Emily was crying again, but these weren't performed tears, these were tears of rage at being exposed. Then James delivered his final blow. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence of conspiracy between Nathan Walsh and Carol Manning, the APS worker who evaluated Mrs. Thompson. The financial records appeared on screen payments from Nathan's shell company to Carol Manning. $24,000 per successful conservatorship. 11 elderly women in 2 years. Carol Manning fled the courtroom, actually ran, her heels clicking frantically on marble as reporters surged after her. Judge Harrison called a recess, his face grave. When we returned, his demeanor had completely changed. I've reviewed the evidence, he said slowly. What I see here isn't a concerned daughter trying to help a declining parent. What I see is an elaborate conspiracy to defraud an elderly woman of her life savings through the abuse of our legal system. Emily let out a wail, genuine this time, the sound of a predator realizing the trap had snapped shut on them instead of their prey. The petition for conservatorship is not only denied, Judge Harrison continued, but I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Credit card fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, identity theft, these are serious crimes. Your Honor, Blackwood tried desperately. My clients were acting out of genuine concern. Genuine concern doesn't involve stealing $43,000 through fraudulent credit cards, Mr. Blackwood. Genuine concern doesn't involve paying off APS workers. And genuine concern certainly doesn't involve systematically destroying an elderly woman's reputation to steal her money. The gavel came down with finality. I had won. But as sheriff's deputies approached Emily with handcuffs, my daughter looked at me with such pure hatred that my victory felt hollow. This was still my child, the baby I'd carried, the toddler I'd taught to walk, the teenager I'd guided through heartbreak. You destroyed me, she hissed as they cuffed her. You're supposed to love me unconditionally. I do love you, Emily, I said quietly. But love doesn't mean allowing you to destroy me. As they led her away, I saw her clearly for the first time, not as my daughter, but as what she'd chosen to become. A predator who'd weaponized maternal love for profit. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. The war was over. I was free. But freedom, I learned that day, could taste like ashes when it came at the cost of losing someone you'd loved more than life itself. The courthouse steps felt like a mountain descent after surviving an avalanche. Reporters swarmed with questions I couldn't answer, their cameras capturing a woman who'd won her case but lost her daughter. James Crawford shielded me as we pushed through, but it was Michael Walsh who truly saved me, pulling up in his rental car and whisking us away from the chaos. We need to talk, Michael said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. There's something about Nathan you don't know. Something that changes everything. We drove to a quiet diner on the outskirts of Burlington, the kind of place where truckers ate pie at 3 a.m. and no one asked questions. Michael ordered coffee with shaking hands, then pulled out a manila envelope that looked like it contained secrets worth killing for. Nathan isn't Patricia's biological son, he said quietly. She adopted him when he was 7. His birth mother was Christina Manning, Carol Manning's sister. The coffee mug slipped from my nerveless fingers, shattering on the linoleum floor. Hot liquid splashed across my shoes, but I couldn't feel it. The conspiracy went deeper than a business arrangement, it was family. Christina was 17 when she had Nathan, Michael continued, ignoring the waitress cleaning up my mess. Drug problems, prostitution, couldn't care for a child. Patricia thought she was saving him, giving him a chance at a normal life, but something was already broken in him. The psychiatrist warned her antisocial personality disorder, they called it. No capacity for empathy. But Patricia believed love could fix anything. Emily, I whispered. Does Emily know? I don't think so. Nathan's played the perfect husband role with her, but she's just another Mark to him. A Mark who came with a wealthy mother and her own streak of greed that made her the perfect accomplice. Michael pulled out a photograph Nathan at age 8, standing beside Patricia with dead eyes that chilled me even through the aged photo paper. No smile, no warmth, just calculation in a child's face. He started stealing from her when he was 12, Michael said. Small things at first, cash from her purse, jewelry he'd pawn. Patricia made excuses, got him therapy, threw money at the problem. By 16, he'd stolen her car and credit cards, disappeared for 3 months. She took him back when the police found him. Always took him back. Why didn't you stop him from destroying her? Michael's face crumpled. I tried. God, I tried. But Patricia wouldn't hear it. Even when he forged her signature on a home equity loan at 21, she forgave him. Said he was sick, needed help, not abandonment. She loved him into poverty, then into that facility. My phone buzzed a call from the Chittenden County Jail. Emily. Don't answer, James advised, but I was already sliding to accept. Mother. Emily's voice was different, flat, devoid of its usual manipulation. Nathan's real mother just visited. Carol Manning's sister. Did you know I married the son of a prostitute? Did you know his whole life is a lie? Emily. She told me everything, how they've been running this con for 15 years, how Nathan picked me specifically because he'd researched you, knew about Dad's life insurance. I wasn't even a person to him. I was an access point to your money. The irony was excruciating. Emily, who'd treated me as an ATM, devastated to learn she'd been treated the same way. I was pregnant, she whispered, and my heart stopped. 6 weeks. I was going to surprise Nathan after we got your money. But stress from the arrest, I lost it this morning. The baby's gone. A grandchild I'd never known about, gone before I could even dream of their existence. Despite everything, my maternal instinct surged to comfort, to hold, to heal. Emily, I'm so sorry. Don't. Her voice turned sharp again. Don't you dare pity me. This is your fault. If you'd just given us the money, none of this would have happened. I'd still be pregnant. I'd still have a marriage. I'd still have a life. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You stole my identity. You excluded me from your wedding. Because Nathan said it was necessary. He had a plan, a system that worked. We'd have paid you back eventually. From where, Emily? From the next elderly woman you destroyed? Silence. Then, the district attorney offered me a deal. Testify against Nathan and Carol Manning, 5 years instead of 15. I'm taking it. That's good, Emily. It's the right thing. I'm not doing the right thing, Mother. I'm surviving. Just like Nathan taught me. Just like you taught me when you chose money over helping your struggling daughter. I chose self-preservation over enabling your greed. Same thing, she said bitterly. We're all just looking out for ourselves. Nathan, you, me, we're all the same. The only difference is, you won your game and I lost mine. She hung up. My daughter would testify against her husband not out of remorse but out of self-interest. The apple hadn't fallen far from Nathan's poison tree. Michael drove me home, my actual home, not Barbara's guest room. The house felt different, like returning to a crime scene. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, yet fundamentally changed. In the kitchen, Emily's kindergarten handprint art still hung on the refrigerator, 5 tiny fingers in purple paint. "I love Mommy" scrawled beneath. I took it down, stared at those innocent fingers that had grown into hands that signed fraudulent credit cards. Then I placed it gently in the trash. "You can grieve her," Michael said softly. "The daughter you thought you had. It's like a death." "It is a death," I replied. "But I'm grieving someone who never existed." That evening, Barbara came over with wine and tissues. We sat on my porch, watching the sun set over Lake Champlain, processing the surreal turn my life had taken. "Patricia Walsh is being released," Barbara said, checking her phone. "Michael got emergency conservatorship reversed based on the conspiracy evidence. She'll testify at Nathan's trial. One mother freed from her prison, another me freed from a different kind of cage. But at what cost?" As darkness fell, I thought about the $43,000 in credit card debt Emily had accumulated in my name, the $400,000 I'd given them over 4 years, the wedding I'd financed but couldn't attend, the grandchild I'd never hold. The money could be recovered or replaced, but the relationship with my daughter, that was gone forever. Another casualty in Nathan's decades-long campaign of destruction. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, paperwork, and the slow process of reclaiming my financial life. But tonight, I sat with my true friend, mourning my false daughter, finally understanding that the greatest theft wasn't monetary. It was the theft of my illusion that maternal love could conquer greed. Monday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my door, Patricia Walsh herself, freed from her Nevada prison after 4 years of medicated captivity. Michael had driven through the night to bring her to Vermont, and she stood on my porch like a ghost returned from the dead, thin and trembling but with eyes blazing with long-suppressed fury. "I have something for you," she said without preamble, holding out a worn leather journal. I kept records. Every day in that hellhole, I documented everything. Names, dates, conversations I overheard. Nathan thought I was too drugged to remember, but I fought those medications every single day, threw them up when the nurses weren't watching, stayed lucid enough to witness. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd calculated the money I'd hemorrhaged to Emily and Nathan as Patricia opened her journal. Page after page of meticulous notes in shaky handwriting, documenting a conspiracy that reached deeper than anyone had imagined. 12 women in California before he moved to Vermont, Patricia said, her finger tracing the names. Eleanor Martinez, 78, declared incompetent, lost $900,000. Dorothy Chen, 81, fighting dementia diagnosis, lost her home. Martha Williams, 75, died in the facility under suspicious circumstances 2 weeks after signing over power of attorney. Died? The word came out strangled. Medication interaction, they said. But Martha was healthy as a horse before Nathan got to her. He learned from that one death brings scrutiny. Better to keep us alive and silent. Michael sat beside his mother, holding her frail hand. The FBI is involved now. This crosses state lines, involves mail fraud, conspiracy. Nathan's looking at life in prison. My phone rang. James Crawford. "Margaret, you need to see the news." I turned on the television to find Emily's face filling the screen. Orange jumpsuit replacing her designer dresses, speaking to a reporter through jailhouse plexiglass. "My mother destroyed my life out of spite," Emily was saying, tears streaming. "I loved her despite her mental decline, tried to help her, and she retaliated by having me arrested. The real victim here is me, manipulated by my husband, abandoned by my mother, and now facing prison for trying to help. The rage that flooded through me was volcanic. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was playing victim, rewriting history for public consumption." Patricia laughed bitterly. Nathan did the same thing, gave interviews from jail, claiming I was the abusive mother who'd driven him to desperation. Some people believed him. That's the hell of it, the victims get painted as the villains. "She's trying to poison the jury pool," James said when I called him back. "But we have something better than her tears, we have evidence." That afternoon, the full scope of the evidence emerged. The FBI had raided Nathan's storage unit, finding what they called a trophy collection documents from every woman he'd defrauded, photographs of them in facilities, detailed notes on their assets and vulnerabilities. Emily's handwriting was on several documents from the past year, proving she wasn't a manipulated victim but an active participant. But the most damning discovery was a video on Nathan's laptop, recorded 3 months ago. Emily and Nathan at a restaurant, champagne glasses raised, toasting. The audio was clear. "To Margaret Thompson," Nathan said, smirking. "The golden goose who thinks she's a mother." Emily laughed, that tinkling sound I'd once found charming. "She actually believes I love her. 40 years of teaching, and she can't recognize a performance. Dad would be rolling in his grave if he knew how stupid she is." "How much more can we get before we pull the trigger on conservatorship?" Nathan asked. "Another 100,000 at least, maybe more. She's getting suspicious though, asking questions about the wedding expenses. Then we move faster, get her declared incompetent before summer." They clinked glasses, and Emily added, "Best investment I ever made was those childhood acting lessons. I love you, Mommy, still works like a charm." I ran to the bathroom, vomiting until my stomach was empty, then continuing to dry heave as my body tried to purge the poison of that video. My daughter hadn't been corrupted by Nathan. She'd been a willing conspirator, laughing at my love while planning my imprisonment. Barbara found me on the bathroom floor, holding me while I sobbed with a grief that felt like dying. She never loved me. Not ever. It was all an act. "You loved her," Barbara said firmly. "Your love was real. That matters." "Does it?" I loved an illusion, a character she played. The real Emily is that woman on the video, toasting to my stupidity. That evening, Susan Chen called with news that her article had won a Pulitzer nomination, but I couldn't celebrate. The story of my betrayal had become entertainment for strangers, my pain transformed into award-worthy journalism. Patricia understood. "They gave me back my money," she said quietly. "Most of it, anyway. But you know what I can't get back? The 4 years I spent drugged in that facility, believing I was losing my mind. The nights I questioned my own sanity because everyone kept telling me I was demented. Nathan didn't just steal money. He stole my faith in my own perception of reality." As night fell, we sat together, two mothers bound by the sons and daughters who'd tried to destroy us. Patricia pulled out a photograph from her wallet, Nathan at 5 years old, grinning at a birthday party. "I keep asking myself when he became a monster," she whispered. "Was it always there? Did I create it by loving him too much? Not enough? Was it my fault?" I thought about Emily's kindergarten handprint, now in my garbage. Maybe some people are just born broken. Maybe our love was never going to be enough to fix them. Or maybe. Michael said quietly, "They made choices. Nathan chose cruelty. Emily chose greed. You both chose love. Don't let their choices invalidate yours." But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling David and I had painted together 30 years ago, I wondered if Michael was right. Could love exist independently of its recipient? Was my maternal devotion still valid even if its object had been a fiction? The prosecutor called at midnight. Nathan had been denied bail, flight risk, and danger to the community. Emily remained in county jail, her $5,000 bail unpaid because she had no access to money, my money, which she'd counted on like a birthright. "She's asking to see you," the prosecutor said, "before the trial. She says she has something important to tell you." I hung up without answering. My daughter had nothing to say that I needed to hear. Her performance was over, the curtain fallen, the audience dispersed. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more evidence, more proof of the elaborate deception I'd funded for 4 years. But tonight, I grieved not for the daughter in jail, but for the daughter who'd never existed, the one who'd loved me, who'd meant those Mother's Day cards, who'd hugged me with genuine affection instead of calculated manipulation. That daughter had been my creation, a beautiful fiction I'd maintained, despite mounting evidence to the contrary. And perhaps that was the cruelest theft of all. Tuesday morning delivered a shock that rewired everything I thought I knew. James Crawford arrived at my door with a safety deposit box key and a letter from Vermont National Bank. Apparently David had maintained a box I never knew about, with instructions to deliver its contents to me in the event of family crisis after his death. The bank manager, Mrs. Elaine Foster, led us to the vault with unusual solemnity. "Your husband was very specific," she said. "He updated these instructions every year until his passing, always with the same criteria, only to be opened if you were in danger from family members." My hands trembled as I turned the key. Inside lay a single USB drive and a letter in David's precise handwriting, dated 6 months before his death. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. Emily has shown her true nature, and you're in danger. Please know that what I'm about to share breaks my heart, but your safety matters more than protecting you from this truth. I sank into the bank's private viewing room chair, Barbara beside me, as James inserted the USB drive into his laptop. A video file appeared timestamp, showing 3 years before David's death. David's face filled the screen, but this wasn't the David I remembered from his final years. This was David looking haunted, sitting in what appeared to be his office after hours. Margaret, my love, I pray you never see this. But if you do, you need to know the truth about our daughter. He paused, visibly struggling, then continued. Emily isn't the person you think she is. I've been documenting her behavior for 5 years now, ever since I caught her stealing from your purse and then convincing you that you'd misplaced the money. She was 29 years old, Margaret. 29 and stealing from her mother, then gaslighting you about it. The room spun. I gripped the table as David's voice continued. I hired a private investigator. I'm sorry for the deception, but I needed to know. Emily has been taking money from us for years, small amounts you wouldn't notice. The investigator found 3 credit cards in your name you don't know about. She's been paying them off with the cash she asks for various emergencies. Papers appeared on screen: credit card statements, investigator reports, photographs of Emily at ATMs with cards I'd never seen. But it's worse than theft, Margaret. I had her college roommate contact me last year. Sarah Reynolds, you remember her. Emily destroyed her life in college. Stole her identity, ran up $40,000 in debt, then convinced everyone Sarah was mentally unstable when she tried to report it. Sarah ended up dropping out, spending years rebuilding her credit and reputation. My stomach heaved. Barbara held a wastebasket as I retched, my body rejecting this poison even as my mind struggled to process it. David's voice grew heavy with sorrow. I confronted Emily last month, told her I knew everything, that she needed help. Do you know what she said, Margaret? She looked me in the eye and said, Mom's love is unconditional. Yours isn't. When you're gone, she'll give me everything, and I'll finally be free of both of you. Those words, so casual, so cruel, broke something fundamental in me. Emily had been planning this even while David was alive. I've changed my will, David continued. My life insurance goes to you alone, in a trust Emily can't touch. I've also documented everything with our attorney, not James Crawford, but Harold Mitchell in Boston. He has copies of everything if you need them. I wanted to tell you, Margaret. God, how I wanted to tell you. But you love her so purely, so completely. You see the daughter you want her to be, not the daughter she is. And maybe that's beautiful. Maybe that's what real maternal love is, choosing to see the best even when faced with the worst. David's eyes filled with tears on the screen. But I'm dying, my love. The doctors say 6 months, maybe a year, and I can't leave you unprotected. Emily will come for you when I'm gone. She'll use your grief, your loneliness, your love. She'll drain you dry and convince you it's your duty to let her. Please, Margaret, please protect yourself. Your love for her is real and beautiful, but her love for you is performance. It always has been. Since she was old enough to understand that love could be weaponized. The video had more financial records, recordings of phone calls where Emily discussed her parents like business assets, even a psychological evaluation from when she was 16 that recommended intensive therapy for antisocial tendencies and pathological lying. One last thing, David said, looking directly at the camera. I've been transferring money to a separate account in your name only. It's at a bank in Montreal. Emily doesn't know it exists. There's $600,000 there. If she ever tries to destroy you, you have resources she can't touch. The account information is with Harold Mitchell. I love you, Margaret. I love you enough to tell you this truth, even knowing it will hurt you. Our daughter is a predator who happened to be born to 2 people who wanted nothing more than to love her. That's not your failure, it's hers. Be safe, my darling. Be strong. And remember, you deserve love that doesn't come with a price tag. The video ended. I sat in perfect stillness, unable to move, unable to breathe. David had known. Had carried this burden alone to protect me, had died knowing our daughter was a monster, had spent his final years documenting her evil while smiling at family dinners. He knew, I whispered. He knew everything. James was already on the phone with Harold Mitchell in Boston. Within minutes, he confirmed the Montreal account existed, untouched, waiting. David had built me a life raft while drowning in his own knowledge of Emily's true nature. Barbara held me as I sobbed, not for Emily this time, but for David. My beautiful, protective husband who'd loved me enough to prepare for my daughter's betrayal, who'd gathered evidence while cancer ate him alive, who'd died carrying the weight of Emily's sociopathy alone. "We need to get this to the prosecutor," James said gently. "This video, these records, they prove Emily's pattern goes back decades. This wasn't Nathan corrupting her. She was already a predator when she met him." That evening, I sat in my empty house, holding David's wedding ring, the one I'd kept in my jewelry box since his death. He'd protected me even from beyond the grave, had seen the storm coming and built me shelter. My phone rang. Emily from jail. This time I answered. "Mom, please, I need bail money." I saw Dad's video. Silence. Then, "What video?" "The one where he documented your thefts, your frauds, what you did to Sarah Reynolds. How you told him you were waiting for him to die so you could take everything from me." The silence stretched longer this time. When Emily finally spoke, her voice had shed every pretense, every performance. This was the real Emily, the one David had seen, the one I'd been blind to. "He was supposed to die without telling you. That sanctimonious bastard just couldn't let me have this one thing." "One thing? You mean my complete financial destruction?" "You owe me," she hissed. "For 40 years of pretending to love you. Do you have any idea how exhausting it's been? Playing the grateful daughter, the loving child? I deserve every penny for that performance." The admission, so casual, so cruel, should have destroyed me. Instead, it freed me. This wasn't my daughter confessing. This was a stranger admitting to a 40-year con. "Goodbye, Emily." "Wait." The bail. I hung up. Then I blocked her number, finally and completely. Tomorrow, David's evidence would be submitted to the court. His video would play for a jury. The world would see what he'd seen, a predator who'd worn the mask of a daughter. But tonight, I held his ring and whispered into the darkness, "Thank you for protecting me, my love. Even after death, you're still saving me." David had loved me enough to document the ugly truth. And perhaps that was the greatest love of all. The trial began 6 weeks later on a humid April morning that made the Burlington courthouse feel like a greenhouse of human misery. I sat in the witness section, flanked by Barbara and Patricia Walsh, watching as Emily was led in wearing shackles that clinked with each step, a sound that should have brought satisfaction, but only deepened my grief. She'd lost weight in jail, her designer highlights grown out to reveal mousy brown roots. But her eyes remained calculating, scanning the packed courtroom like a predator assessing threats and opportunities. When our gazes met, she smiled, not warmth, but a cold acknowledgement of mutual destruction. The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Maria Rodriguez, opened with David's video. The courtroom fell silent as my dead husband's voice filled the space, methodically documenting our daughter's crimes. I watched the jury's faces transform from skepticism to horror as David presented evidence spanning 20 years: Emily's theft from her college roommate, fraudulent credit cards, the systematic emotional manipulation. The defendant, Rodriguez said, isn't a daughter who made mistakes. She's a career criminal who used her mother's love as a weapon for 4 decades. Emily's public defender, an overwhelmed young man named Timothy Chen, tried valiantly to paint her as Nathan's victim. But when Rodriguez played the restaurant video, Emily, toasting to my stupidity, laughing about her performance as a loving daughter, several jurors visibly recoiled. Then came my testimony. Walking to the witness stand felt like approaching my own execution. Emily watched me with those eyes that had fooled me for 40 years, still trying to find the angle, the manipulation that would save her. "Mrs. Thompson," Rodriguez began gently, "tell us about your relationship with your daughter before these events." "I thought we were close," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "I believed she loved me. I would have died for her without hesitation. And now?" I looked directly at Emily. "Now I know I was mourning a daughter who never existed. The real Emily has been a stranger wearing my child's face, performing love while planning my destruction." "Objection," Chen called out. "Speculation about my client's emotions." Sustained. Rodriguez played the credit card evidence, the wedding photos, the bank records. Each piece of evidence felt like another nail in the coffin of my maternal delusions. But it was when she played Emily's jailhouse call that the courtroom truly turned. "You owe me," Emily's recorded voice snarled through the speakers. For 40 years of pretending to love you. Do you have any idea how exhausting it's been? A woman in the jury box wiped away tears. An elderly man shook his head in disgust. Emily took the stand in her own defense, and watching her perform was like seeing behind a magician's curtain. Once you knew the trick, the illusion lost all power. She cried on cue, her voice breaking at rehearsed moments, painting herself as a battered woman manipulated by Nathan into betraying the mother she'd always adored. But Rodriguez's cross-examination was surgical. "Miss Thompson-Walsh, you claim Nathan forced you to steal your mother's identity? He manipulated me. Did he force you to open credit cards in her name when you were in college, 5 years before you met him?" Emily's facade cracked slightly. "That's not relevant. Your college roommate Sarah Reynolds testified yesterday about the $40,000 in debt you accumulated in her name. Was Nathan responsible for that too?" "Sarah is lying." Rodriguez pulled up a document on the courtroom screen. "This is a psychiatric evaluation from when you were 16. The psychologist notes, and I quote, 'Subject displays remarkable ability to mimic emotions she doesn't feel, using artificial emotional displays to manipulate family members.'" Were you being controlled by Nathan at 16? Emily's mask finally shattered completely. "You don't understand what it's like," she screamed, jumping to her feet. "To be born to people like them, suffocating me with their pathetic love, their constant need for gratitude. I gave them what they wanted, a performance of a daughter, and they should have paid for the show." The courtroom erupted. Judge Harrison gavelled for order as guards restrained Emily, but she continued screaming. "She owes me! That money is mine! I earned it by pretending to be her precious baby for 40 years. Do you know how hard it was to pretend to love her?" As they dragged her from the courtroom, she turned to me one last time. "I hope you die alone, you pathetic old woman. I hope you die knowing your daughter never loved you." The words should have destroyed me. Instead, they liberated me. This was Emily without the mask, raw, honest, monstrous. The jury had seen it. Everyone had seen it. Nathan's trial was separate but concurrent. Michael testified against his brother with a devastating precision, presenting evidence of 14 elderly women across 3 states. Patricia Walsh took the stand despite her frailty, describing 4 years of drugged imprisonment while Nathan drained her accounts. Carol Manning had fled to Mexico, but her banking records revealed the full scope of the conspiracy: $2.3 million stolen from vulnerable seniors over 15 years. The verdicts came down on the same day. Nathan, guilty on all counts, sentenced to 40 years without parole. Emily, guilty of fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. The judge, citing the exceptional cruelty of crimes against her own mother, sentenced her to 15 years. As the bailiff led Emily away for the last time, she didn't look back. No final glance, no moment of regret. She simply walked away, already calculating her next move, her next mark, her next performance. That evening, I stood in David's study, now mine alone, looking at a photo from Emily's first birthday. David holding her, me beside them, all 3 of us covered in chocolate cake and laughing. The baby in that photo was real. The laughter was real. But everything that came after? I placed the photo face down in a drawer, not throwing it away but retiring it from display. That baby deserved to be mourned. The woman in shackles didn't deserve another moment of my grief. Barbara found me there, bringing tea and silence, the gifts of true friendship. "It's over," she said softly. "No," I replied, looking out at the Vermont mountains David had loved. "The trial is over, the betrayal is over, but my life? That's just beginning." Tomorrow, I would visit the bank in Montreal, access the money David had hidden for me. Next week, I'd meet with the other victims, forming a support group Patricia and I had discussed. Next month, I'd travel to Europe, something David and I had always planned, but Emily's financial drain had made impossible. Emily would serve her time, probably get out in 10 years with good behavior. She'd find new marks, new performances, new victims, but she'd never find me again. I'd changed my will, leaving everything to David's scholarship fund and legitimate charities. The daughter I'd loved had never existed, but the mother I'd been devoted, generous, blind to faults, she was dead too. In her place stood Margaret Thompson, survivor, truth-teller, and finally free. 6 months after the trial, Autumn returned to Vermont with a vengeance, painting the maples blood red as if nature itself remembered the betrayal. I stood in my kitchen, reading a letter that had arrived from the federal correctional institution where Emily was serving her sentence. Not from Emily she'd never written, but from her cellmate. Mrs. Thompson, you don't know me, but I know all about you. I'm Emily's cellmate, Rosa Martinez, doing 20 for bank fraud. I'm writing because you deserve to know what your daughter is doing in here. She's running the same con on other inmates' families. Convinced 3 women to have their mothers put money in her commissary account, claiming she's a political prisoner wrongly convicted for helping her sick mother. She shows them fake newspaper clippings she made in the prison library, painting you as the villain who destroyed her life. She talks about you constantly, not with regret, but with rage. She plans everything she'll do when she gets out, finding vulnerable old women, learning from Nathan's mistakes. She says you taught her the best lesson of all. Love is just weakness waiting to be exploited. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. I have a daughter too. Haven't seen her in 5 years because of what I did. But I still love her. And she still loves me. What Emily is, that's not about you. Some people are born without souls. Don't let her poison live in your heart. Rosa. I set the letter down with steady hands, a steadiness that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Rosa was right. Emily's poison could only live in my heart if I allowed it residence. The doorbell rang. Patricia Walsh for our weekly lunch. She'd gained weight since her release, color returning to cheeks that had been gray from years of unnecessary medication. We'd become unlikely sisters, bonded by the children who'd tried to bury us alive. Any word from Michael? I asked as we settled at my dining table. Patricia smiled a real smile, not the practiced expression we'd both worn while being destroyed by our children. He's testifying in California next week. 3 more of Nathan's victims have come forward. The FBI thinks there might be 20 more across the country. 20 more mothers, grandmothers, aunts, women whose only crime was loving a predator who shared their DNA or married into their trust. I got a call from the prison, Patricia continued, her smile fading. Nathan's in solitary. Apparently, he tried to run a conservatorship scam on another inmate's grandmother from inside prison. Smuggled phones, forged documents, the whole operation. They added 10 years to his sentence. He'll never stop, I said quietly. Neither will Emily. No, Patricia agreed. But we stopped them from stopping us. That matters. After lunch, I drove to Lakeview Cemetery, where David rested beneath a granite stone that read "Beloved Husband, Protector, Truth Teller." I brought yellow roses, his favorite, and sat on the bench we'd installed years ago, planning to visit together in old age. She's exactly who you said she was, I told his stone. A predator in a daughter's skin. You saw it all, carried it alone, died knowing our child was a monster. I'm so sorry you faced that alone. Wind rustled through the cemetery maples, and for a moment, I could almost hear David's voice. You were her mother. You had to love her. I was just her father. I could afford to see clearly. My phone buzzed a text from Barbara with a link to a news article. My blood chilled as I read the headline. Convicted elder abuser Emily Thompson. Walsh publishes prison memoir. Betrayed by blood. How my mother destroyed me. The article included excerpts. Emily had written 300 pages painting herself as a victim of a demented mother's paranoia, a devoted daughter wrongly imprisoned by a corrupt system. She'd managed to find a publisher willing to sensationalize our tragedy for profit. The rage that flooded through me was volcanic, but underneath it was something worse: exhaustion. Even from prison, Emily was monetizing our relationship, selling a fictional version of our story to anyone willing to pay $24.95 in hardcover. I called James Crawford immediately. Can we stop this? I'll file an injunction, but Margaret. She's careful to frame everything as her truth and her experience. It's likely protected as free speech. That evening, I sat with Patricia and Barbara in my living room as we watched Emily's interview on a true crime podcast, recorded via prison phone. Her voice was different, softer, wounded, perfected for her new audience of conspiracy theorists and anti-establishment believers. My mother had been declining for years, Emily said, her voice breaking artfully. But the system failed us both. Instead of getting her help, they turned her paranoia against me. I lost my mother twice, once to dementia, once to the legal system. That fucking bitch, Barbara exploded the first time I'd heard her curse in 20 years of friendship. She's still doing it, still playing victim while you're living with the trauma she caused. Patricia laughed bitterly. Nathan's doing the same thing. Has a podcast fan club convinced he's innocent? That I framed him. 30 women send him money every month. The truth hit me like ice water. Prison hadn't stopped them. It had just given them new stages, new audiences, new ways to perform their victimhood while planning their next attacks. My phone rang unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, Margaret Thompson? The voice was young, nervous. My name is Ashley Coleman. I'm a journalism student at NYU. I'm writing my thesis on your case. I was wondering if you'd comment on your daughter's book? No comment. But don't you want to tell your side? Emily's narrative is gaining traction. People are starting to believe. I hung up. Let them believe. The people who mattered, the jury, the judge, the FBI, they knew the truth. Emily could rewrite history for strangers, but she couldn't rewrite her conviction or the $43,000 in credit card fraud. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out David's video again. Watched my dead husband methodically document our daughter's evil, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. He'd known this would happen, the public manipulation, the rewritten narrative, the perpetual victimhood. She'll never stop performing, he'd said near the end of the recording. Even if she's caught, convicted, imprisoned, she'll just find new audiences. It's who she is. As dawn broke over Vermont, I made a decision. I wouldn't fight Emily's book or her interviews or her prison memoir. I wouldn't engage with journalists or correct the record for strangers who chose to believe her lies. Instead, I would live. I booked a flight to Paris for the following month, enrolled in a watercolor class at the community college, joined a book club that met at the local library, started volunteering at the women's shelter, sharing my story with other victims of family financial abuse. Emily could have her narrative. I would have my life. The daughter I'd loved never existed. The daughter in prison was a stranger wearing my child's face, still performing, still manipulating, still feeding on others' pain and generosity. But I was no longer her audience. I was free. 1 year after the trial, on a deceptively warm October afternoon that reminded me of happier autumns, I received a letter that shattered my carefully constructed peace. The return address showed the Federal Correctional Institution, but the handwriting wasn't Emily's. It was shakier, older, unfamiliar. Inside, a single sheet of prison stationery contained words that made my hands tremble. Dear Mrs. Thompson, my name is Grace Hamilton. I'm 73 years old, serving 5 years for embezzlement. I didn't commit, my grandson framed me, though I can't prove it. I'm writing because your daughter saved my life yesterday. I know that sounds impossible given what she did to you. But when 3 younger inmates cornered me in the laundry room, planning to beat me for my commissary money, Emily intervened. She took a shank to the ribs, protecting me. She's in the medical ward now, asking for you. I don't know why she did it. When I asked her as they carried her to medical, she said, my mother would have done the same thing. Maybe if I act like her enough, I'll understand what I lost. Please come. She might not survive. Grace. The letter fell from my numb fingers. Barbara, who'd been having tea with me, picked it up and read it, her face paling. It's a manipulation, she said immediately. Another con. She probably orchestrated the whole thing. But something in my chest, that dormant maternal instinct I'd thought Emily had killed, stirred painfully. I called the prison. The medical ward confirmed it. Emily Thompson, Walsh, severe puncture wound to the right abdomen, critical condition, surgery scheduled for 6 p.m. No, Patricia said when I called her. Absolutely not. This is exactly the kind of manipulation Nathan would pull. The dramatic gesture, the deathbed reconciliation, it's textbook. James Crawford was blunter. Margaret, she spent a year in prison perfecting new ways to manipulate people. This could be her masterpiece. But I went anyway. The 4-hour drive to the federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut, felt like traveling through time past the exit for Emily's college, through towns where we'd stopped on family trips, along routes David had driven while Emily slept in the back seat, still young enough to be innocent. The prison was a concrete monument to human failure. After 3 hours of security procedures, I was led to the medical ward where Emily lay unconscious, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped with mechanical indifference. She looked smaller, frailer, older. Prison had aged her a decade in a year. The designer highlights were gone, revealing premature gray. The calculating eyes were closed, purple-shadowed. A bandage covered her right side, already seeping red. Grace Hamilton sat beside the bed, a small, fragile woman who looked like she belonged in a library, not a federal prison. "She really did save me," Grace whispered. "Those women would have killed me. I'm old, weak, an easy target." Emily fought them off. One had a homemade knife, got her good before the guards arrived. "Why?" I asked, not to Grace but to Emily's unconscious form. "Why save anyone?" Emily's eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on my face. For a moment, I saw confusion, then recognition, then something I'd never seen before, shame. "Mom?" Her voice was raspy, weak. "You came. Why did you do it, Emily? Why save Grace?" She closed her eyes, tears leaking from beneath the lids. "I dream about you every night. Not the trial, not the money, just you. Making breakfast, helping with homework, singing that stupid sunshine song." She opened her eyes again. "I saved Grace because for 1 second, I wanted to know what it felt like to be you, to help someone without calculating the return. And it felt..." She struggled for words. "Empty. Like I was performing again, but for no audience. I don't know how to feel things the way you do. I never have." The admission was devastating in its honesty. Not manipulation this time, but genuine recognition of her own emotional void. "When I was 5, Emily continued, her voice fading, "you took me to that petting zoo in Stowe. A rabbit bit me, drew blood. You cried harder than I did. I remember thinking how strange it was, you feeling my pain more than I felt it myself. That's when I knew I was different. You remember that?" "I remember everything. Every birthday cake you made from scratch. Every school play you attended. Every sacrifice. I just couldn't feel what I was supposed to feel about it. So I learned to pretend. And somewhere along the way, pretending turned to resenting. And resenting turned to taking." A doctor entered, checking Emily's vitals. "She needs rest. The surgery was successful, but infection is still a risk." I stood to leave, but Emily grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "I'm writing another book," she said, "the real one this time. About what it's like to be born without the ability to love. About the monster who wore your daughter's face for 40 years. Another manipulation? Maybe. I don't know anymore. I just know that saving Grace felt like nothing, but seeing you again feels like something. Not love, I don't know what that is. But something." I pulled my hand away gently. "Emily, I can't forgive you. Not for the theft, not for the fraud, but especially not for the 40 years of performed love while you planned my destruction. I know." Her voice was fading as exhaustion took hold. "But maybe you could forgive the 5-year-old who didn't understand why the rabbit bite made you cry. Before I became the monster. When I was just broken, not evil." The heart monitor beeped steadily as she drifted back into unconsciousness. I stood there, looking at the stranger who'd gestated in my womb, who'd taken her first steps in my kitchen, who'd graduated with honors while already planning to destroy me. Grace touched my arm gently. "My grandson, the one who framed me, he visited last month. Cried, apologized, begged forgiveness. I gave it to him, and you know what? It didn't heal anything. He's still a criminal. I'm still in prison. Forgiveness is just a word when the damage can't be undone." As I left the prison, Emily's words echoed. Forgive the 5-year-old. Could I separate the child from the monster? Could I mourn the 5-year-old who couldn't understand empathy while hating the 40-year-old who weaponized that lack? Barbara was waiting in my car. She'd insisted on driving me, knowing I'd be in no condition to drive myself home. "How was it?" she asked. She saved someone's life to feel something. Felt nothing. She recognizes she's broken, but recognition isn't repair. "Will you visit again?" I thought about Emily's unconscious face, so similar to the infant I'd held 40 years ago, before the performances began. "No," I said finally. "I'll forgive the broken child she was. But the woman she became? That stranger earned her isolation." As we drove home through the New England darkness, I realized forgiveness could exist alongside abandonment. I could forgive the 5-year-old Emily while maintaining absolute boundaries with the 40-year-old criminal. It wasn't healing. It wasn't reconciliation. but it was, perhaps, the closest thing to peace either of us would ever find. 5 years had passed since that hospital visit in Danbury Prison. 5 years of rebuilding, of learning to live without the phantom limb of a daughter who'd never truly existed. I stood in my renovated kitchen, the one I'd finally allowed myself to remodel with the money David had protected, preparing Thanksgiving dinner for my chosen family. Barbara arrived first, carrying her famous pecan pie. Patricia Walsh followed with her new husband, Richard, a widower she'd met at our support group, who understood the unique grief of being betrayed by your own child. Michael Walsh came with his partner James and their adopted twin daughters, 6-year-olds who called me Grandma Margaret with the genuine affection Emily had only performed. As we gathered around my table, I thought about the letter that had arrived yesterday, the last one I would ever receive from Emily. She'd been released 3 months early for good behavior and her testimony against Nathan's larger criminal network. The letter was brief. Margaret, I won't call you Mom anymore. That title belongs to someone who had a daughter, not a performer. I'm moving to Oregon, starting over with a new name. The state has mandated therapy, lifetime monitoring of my finances, and I can never work in any capacity involving elderly care or financial management. I published the real book, The Absence, A Sociopath's Confession. All proceeds go to elder abuse prevention, per the court order. It's the closest thing to restitution I can offer. I still don't feel love, but I've learned to recognize its absence as my disability, not your failure. The rabbit bite still didn't make me cry. But knowing it made you cry for me, that's the closest to feeling I've ever come. Don't look for me. Let me remain the stranger I've always been. Emily. I'd burned the letter in my fireplace, watching 40 years of complicated history turn to ash and drift up the chimney. It was the final goodbye to someone who'd occupied my womb but never my reality. A toast. Patricia raised her glass of sparkling cider. To the knowledge that love cannot be performed, only felt. To the knowledge that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's survival. To the lesson that blood doesn't guarantee love, Barbara added. And the lesson that chosen family can heal what birth family breaks. Michael stood, his eyes glistening. To the mothers who loved their children even when those children were incapable of love. Your love wasn't wasted, it was education in what humanity should be, even when faced with inhumanity. The twins, not understanding the weight of our words but sensing their importance, raised their juice boxes. To Grandma Margaret, they chorused, and everyone laughed real laughter, not the performed kind I'd grown too familiar with. After dinner, as we sat by the fire, Patricia asked the question I'd been pondering for 5 years. Do you regret having her? I thought about Emily at 2, laughing at butterflies she couldn't catch. Emily at 7, meticulously organizing her Halloween candy by color and size. Emily at 16, giving her valedictorian speech with perfect eloquence while feeling nothing. No, I said finally, because the knowledge that I was capable of unconditional love even towards someone who couldn't reciprocate that knowledge makes me who I am. The lesson here isn't that love is weakness. It's that love is strength, even when it's not returned. Especially when it's not returned. Richard, Patricia's husband, spoke up quietly. My son stole from me too, not as dramatically as Nathan, but consistently for years. The hardest education I received was learning that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still maintain absolute boundaries. The real education, I added, is understanding that some people are born with pieces missing, not their fault, but not our responsibility to fix. Emily couldn't feel love any more than a colorblind person can see red. The tragedy isn't her lack, it's that she weaponized it. As the evening wound down and my chosen family prepared to leave, Michael's daughters ran up to me, wrapping their small arms around my waist. We love you, Grandma Margaret. The words spoken with genuine 6-year-old enthusiasm hit me like lightning. This was real. This was what I'd been missing for 40 years without knowing it. True, uncalculated, unperformed love. That night, alone in my house but not lonely, I stood at my bedroom window looking out at the Vermont mountains silvered by moonlight. David's presence felt strong, as if he were standing beside me, finally free of the burden of knowing our daughter's true nature. The doorbell rang unexpectedly. My neighbor's teenage daughter, Sarah, stood shivering on my porch. Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you, but my mom's at work and I locked myself out. Could I wait here? Of course, dear. Come in, I'll make you some hot chocolate. As I warmed milk on the stove, Sarah sat at my kitchen table doing homework. Such a simple scene, yet one Emily and I had performed hundreds of times without it ever being real. But this was real. A child needing help, an adult providing it, no calculation or manipulation involved. "Mrs. Thompson," Sarah said suddenly, "my mom told me about your daughter. What she did to you. I'm really sorry." "Thank you, Sarah. But you know what I've learned? The greatest lesson from all of this is that we can't let someone else's inability to love prevent us from loving. That would be letting them win." Dear viewers of Voices of Auntie Rose, as we reach the end of Margaret's journey, I want to ask you, how does this story resonate with your own life? Have you experienced betrayal from someone you loved unconditionally? How did you find the strength to rebuild? The education we receive from stories like Margaret's isn't just about recognizing manipulation or protecting our assets. It's about understanding that our capacity to love, even when that love is exploited, is not our weakness but our humanity. The final lesson is that we can choose our family, set our boundaries, and still maintain our ability to trust and love again. What did you feel when Emily saved Grace but felt nothing? When Margaret forgave the broken 5-year-old but not the criminal 40-year-old? These complex emotions, this is what makes us human. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories, your pain, your triumph, they matter. They create a community of survivors who refuse to let betrayal define them. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to Voices of Auntie Rose for more powerful narratives every day. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might change your perspective or heal your heart. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in their struggles. Remember, the knowledge that you're worthy of genuine love, the education that boundaries are healthy, the lesson that family isn't always blood, these are truths that can transform your life. To everyone watching, I wish you good health, peaceful days, and the wisdom to recognize real love when it appears. May you find your chosen family, set your boundaries with confidence, and never apologize for protecting your heart while keeping it open to authentic connection. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, remember, you are stronger than your struggles, wiser than your wounds, and worthy of love that doesn't come with a price tag. Goodbye for now, and see you in the next video.